What's going on, friends? It's Anton Daniels, and I gotta have a conversation with you guys about Tiege Hanley because you see how the sun is hitting me. This is no finesse, no makeup, no filters, no none of that. This is 100% Tiege Hanley. I use it in the morning as soon as I get up, right after I pray and brush my teeth, jump in the shower, and I'm hitting the streets because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So even though they're giving you 40% off your first order, 20% off for life, even though you may get a free gift, forget all that, right? Because we would do this even if it was full price because it's worth that much. I'm in the streets, I'm kicking it with people when I see Dusties everywhere. You don't want to be them. You want to separate yourself. And the way that you separate yourself is self-care. Ladies get it for the fellas. Fellas don't wait for the ladies to get it for you. I'm about to hit the streets right now and I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling great. I mean, I already got confidence, but to have that extra boost of confidence, knowing that you've taken care of yourself and you set yourself apart from all of the rest of the sheep that's walking around making bad decisions on a daily basis. And it's reflected in their actions. It's reflected in the products that they use. It's reflected in the people that they follow. And so if you're trying to level up, if you're trying to make sure that you look good, they're going to send you the pack. They're going to give you all of the instructions on how you're supposed to use it. Then make sure you get your Tiege Hanley. Again, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. Get your free gift. Make sure you tap in with your boy Anton Daniels because Unc is never going to lead you wrong. I would never have you use a product that I don't use myself. Again, they've been rocking with me for a long time. Make sure you get your Tiege Hanley. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. Thank you for tuning in for another edition of the Millionaire Morning Show. I am your host, Anton Daniels. What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up? What up to all of my friends and family? I appreciate you guys. You guys are the greatest. And when I say the greatest people on the face of this earth, bar none. Bar none. I had a really interesting weekend, and I just want to go ahead and get into the show because I think that it's going to be a pretty extensive show. Lessons this weekend. For those of you that may not be familiar, I actually turned 43 on Sunday. Yes, I turned 43 on Sunday. Let me give myself a round of applause. What's going on to everybody that's jumping into the chat? I turned 43 on Sunday, and what I've learned is extensive. And I had a little bit of time to sit with myself because yesterday I spent the majority of my time right here, inside of my studio, working alone, figuring it out, making it happen, and putting things together. And what I found out about myself as I get older is that I am more focused than I ever have been before, and I'm less tolerant than I ever have been before. Let me say that again for the people in the back. I'm more focused than I ever been before, and I'm less tolerant than I ever have been before. And the reason that is because I believe that as young guys, a lot of people don't realize that when you're in your 20s, you're still trying to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? A lot of women, and this kind of lends into the relationship space, a lot of women don't really want to ride with you so that they can be the beneficiaries of your greatness. You have a lot of things that's being taught online about how you shouldn't date potential and all of these different things, but you're still trying to figure it out for yourself, right? Jordan, he says, Unc, I just turned 29. Man, listen, you at the beginning of your greatness. Most guys don't even figure it out until they are in their 30s. So if you start to, really get your life together and figure it out, and don't get me wrong, I want you to figure it out before that. But literally, most of the guys that tap in with me, they like, man, you know what? I figured it out. I'm no longer simping. I dodged that bullet, thank God, or whatever. But you start to figure it out by the time you get into your 30s. By the time you're in your mid 30s, heading into 40, a lot of times you're a lot more stable, but you're firmly entrenched in the fight, right? You're firmly entrenched in the fight. Now, obviously, again, this is for people that are productive. This is for people that really got it together. They focus. They put away all of the childish games. They're not caught up in any of the things that's caught up in, that society would then try to prevent you from being successful with. And they're focused. And then by the time that you hit your 40s, right? And now I'm firmly entrenched. When you first hit your 40s, you like, man, I'm 40. Like it's a reality check. Like you unk now. You're unk now, And some guys, they get a little bit, reluctant to embrace being in their 40s and all of that stuff. But you unk now, and then at 41, 42, you settle down a little bit. And at 43, you realize that most of the people and most of the decisions in your life that you've made, whether it be financial, whether it be health wise, or whether it be the relationships and the people that you align yourself with, and I'm talking about networking, a person that you choose to lay down next to every day, it's going to be exponentially going in that direction. Whether you pick left or you pick right, it is going to exponentially go in one of those directions. At 40, right? In your 40s, when you get to 41, 42, 43 years old, that's going to be the separation between the men and the boys. It's going to be separation between the women and the ladies. It's going to be really, you're going to have to get it together ASAP because there is no middle. There will be no middle. You can kind of straddle the fence. You can try to figure it out. Most of the time, people are kind of stuck in their mindsets by the time that they get 40. It's hard. It's absolutely hard. And I got some great people that is coming on the show today, including Sholdon Daniels down there in Dallas. I can't wait to talk to him right after we finish having this conversation. But it is very difficult to change the mind of a person that is older. And literally, you just got to put the information out there. And then if they take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't. It's hard to get people off of the Democrat plantation. It's hard to try to train people. Hey, listen, you need to dedicate yourself. It's hard. That's why they say train up a child and it'll never depart from them. It's difficult to try to convince people to do the thing that's in their best interest once they get past a certain age. And so you kind of become a little bit more settled in who you are. You become more successful, or you become more resentful towards other people that are successful. When you see people that criticize or get mad or they're absolutely angry with somebody that may have a difference of opinion than them, you are now seeing the reflection of a person that is stuck at a time where the best days of their life is past them, right? Have y'all ever ran into those people that only talk about whether or not they was good in high school? They just like Al Bundy from Polk High. Hey, man, I have 4 touchdowns. Hey, man, remember when I hit 4 or 5 threes in a row? That's those type of people. Those are the type of people, the type of guys, the type of women that say, yo, I had motion, or you wasn't outside during this time. They're overly critical of the people that are intelligent and decided to make a long-term decision instead of a short-term, hey, listen, I'm a part of the in crowd, I'm a part of the crew. We have to change our mindset. And the thing that I want to impart to you guys in the beginning of this show, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring up Sholdon. The thing that I want to impart to you guys in the beginning of this show is this. It's absolutely this. The decisions that you make today are largely going to play a huge, and when I say a massive role, for all of y'all that's just saying, yo, it's my birthday, I'm turning 29, I'm turning 28, I'm turning 32. I don't care if you're turning 50. You are going to have to definitively make a decision. This is not Call of Duty. This is not Fortnite. You don't get to respawn. You don't get to do it over again. You're going to have to definitively make a decision on what path you want to take today. And it doesn't mean that you can't make mistakes or whatever, but you are going to have to firmly entrench yourself in whatever that decision is. Whatever it is. I mean, you practically have to become a sociopath when it comes to dedicating yourself to success. For the guys, listen, you cannot straddle the fence. I know that they keep telling you, and all of these women on TikTok and online and all of this stuff, hey, where's the men that focus on us? And men, you should listen. She's going to be the beneficiary of your greatness. As a person that has been married for almost 21 years, I'm telling you, you need to focus everything you have on whatever it is that you're supposed to be. Whatever that purpose is that God has given to you, that is you. You live right there in between them lines. Everything else is extra. That line right there, that's you. Don't deviate from it. Don't negotiate. Don't sit here and make concessions. Don't find yourself hanging out with the people that ain't going in the direction. You, listen, I told my daughter the other day, I said, listen, Les, You know what's so interesting about life? She said, what? I said, all of these things that you concerned about in high school, she's 17 going on 18. I said, all of these things that you concerned about in high school, guess what? You're never going to see 99% of all of those people that you are having a conversation about or with, you're never going to see them again. It won't even matter. You may be in touch with one or two occasionally. It ain't even going to matter. It's not going to matter. And it set her off. It gave her this mentality that she had to be firmly entrenched in whatever it is she thought. And this is her at 17. It's the same thing for us. No children out of wedlock. No self-inflicted. You're going to have enough problems just lifing. You're going to start businesses. You're going to fail. People not going to support you. You're going to think you got it figured out. Somebody going to lay you off. Life is going to life. And so you can overcome that, but you can't keep having self-inflicted wounds talking about, I'm going to figure it out tomorrow. That's over. That's over. If you want success, listen, there's some people that's going to blame the system. It's other people that's going to blame the president. It's other people that's going to say, oh man, it's because we didn't get our reparations. Cool. That's online chatter and conversation. But what I'm telling you is that whatever it is that you find yourself doing and whatever your circumstance is in life, if you are right here inside of the United States of America, the American dream is still alive and well. Whatever you do, your 24 hours, how you spend it, it's going to absolutely bear fruit or it's going to bear a bunch of thorns. You got to figure out what you're going to do and then hit it with. Don't deviate. Everything you do has to be dedicated to that. You can't start, stop, figure it out, keep on going back to school. Either finish or just be a dusty. Finish or be a dusty. And what I've realized as a result of turning 43 years old yesterday is that I am more entrenched and more dedicated than I spent the majority of my birthday right here in my studio. Never missing. And yes, we do party. We got a Patreon meetup coming up. I'm going to put that inside of the Patreon today. We do party, but I'm telling you, we do not miss. I don't care what nobody else is doing. We are 100% going in this direction, and it is what it is. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. I'm going to bring up my friend Sholdon. I want to have this conversation with him shortly. Let me read a couple of super chats, and then we're going to go ahead and get started with the show. And let me also say that I appreciate all of the birthday love, everything that you guys did for me, all of the text messages, all of the love. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Y'all are the greatest group of people on the face of this earth. Let me go ahead and read some of these super chats, cash apps, and then we're going to go ahead and bring Sholdon up. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let me go ahead and bring Sholdon up. I just want to get this show started off right. Listen, it's usually, you know how I do. We grow to over 4,000 or 5,000 people in the live stream throughout this live stream. For everybody that's restreaming this, hit a like for the algorithm. That is your reasonable expectation. That is your price of admission getting in. For those of you that's been here more than once, make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel, tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. We over 15,000 strong on Patreon. And then also send this to your family and friends because we don't want to be successful by ourselves. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and get into the show. Before I do so, I want to just say that this young man I've heard so much about. I've heard that he is exceptional. But I just want to have a conversation to better understand him because I think that we've removed the personal. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it's important to really understand who a person is because you know me, I'm no fan of Jasmine Crockett personally. And I think that she's very fake. I think that she's Nunu from ATL, you know, grew up in an environment that wasn't what she's trying to portray herself to be. But we're going to get there. Let me bring up my friend Sholdon Daniels. Sholdon, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a good day, beautiful day. Besides all the pollen and the allergies, man, I got no complaints. I'm happy to be above ground.
Man, I'm happy to be speaking with you today. So I'm excited to kick it with you. I'm excited to ask you some questions. But before I get into asking you whatever it is that I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind introducing yourself to the people and letting them know why you're here.
Well, I'm attorney Sholdon Daniels. I'm a 38-year-old. I'll be 39 on Friday. Dad, husband. I'm a small business owner. I'm an attorney. I'm an Army vet. I'm really just a regular guy. I'm not really a politician in the traditional sense. I'm just a guy who saw a problem, who saw a need, and I've just stepped up to meet that problem, confront that problem, and bring some solutions. And thankfully, luckily, by the grace of God and just the support of all the people all over the country, I've managed to see a little bit of success so far since we've set out on this journey. And I'm hoping we can carry this all the way through to November 3rd of 2026 and win that seat.
So you know that I mean, you stepping into the Lions den now, right? Because politics, as I've been navigating and being a content creator and being able to see a little bit behind the scenes, politics is wild. It is one of the, I think is a lot wilder than the streets. How do you what made you make the decision to then run for Congress?
Being a dad, whenever this thing, I've always been raised to kind of see society as, something bigger than myself that I needed to contribute to. But when I have children, innocent kids, and when you have kids, you meet other parents, right? Your kids have friends and classmates, and you start to develop this network. And now that I see the world kind of through the lens of a dad and a husband, someone who needs to, prepare, my house. When I have a new baby, I have to go around and kind of safety proof and child proof my house, thinking in the future. That's how I'm kind of looking at the world. And I saw the trajectory that the radical left was trying to take our country. I see what these globalists are trying to do to the world abound. And as somebody who has the ability and kind of the know-how to at least get in there and learn how to become effective very quickly, I just felt it incumbent on me to step up and do that.
How many children do you have?
I have 4 kids. My wife and we have 3 children together, but I became a dad at 14 years old. So I have a 25-year-old daughter. Not really a kid, but yeah, as far as kids, I have a 7-year-old son, and we're not going to talk about that 'cause, she wants to have her own private life
Yeah,
or whatever.
absolutely.
So, but as far as children, I have a 7-year-old son, Sholdon Jr. I have a 5-year-old daughter named Nova, and my wife and I just welcomed our 3rd child, Alira, who will be 1 month
Congratulations.
old on my birthday. Yeah, thank you so much.
So wait a minute. So how many kids do you plan on? How many more do you plan on having?
As many as God will bless us with. So.
No, I think that that's awesome because I think that one of the things that plagues society is that we have a lot of people that are not situationally aware, and I don't think that they really understand how impactful it is to have children because these are the future leaders, which is one of the things that really plagued me, and that I was, man, it was difficult for me to even have a kid because similar to what you was just saying, I was looking at the trajectory of the world and how things were going. And, it was just like, man, I can't imagine having more than one child. But, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is your mindset originally growing up, because me personally, I was raised in Detroit, Michigan, raised in a church, but I was raised in a traditionally Democrat household. All of my family is still Democrat. All of my brothers and all of that stuff, even though they have a conservative mindset, they are still taught to vote blue, right? And it took me a little bit to kind of get out of that, to start thinking for myself. And I would say probably within the last, I don't know, 8-9 years was when I kind of snapped out of it. Were you traditionally raised in a similar environment? And if so, how were you able to divest yourself and then start to move more towards conservative values or being a Republican?
Absolutely. I was born in the mid 80s. I was born in 86 to a single mom, government housing, the projects, that whole nine. And so, coming up in that environment, there was absolutely a lot of us versus them. I was raised with this perspective of, my ancestors were brought over here by force. everyone hated them when they got here. All
Yeah.
white people in America were pro-slavery, and the people who weren't actively involved with it just didn't care about us. And so I definitely came up with that kind of chip on my shoulder growing up in rural Texas, where I kind of got to see some of the vestiges and some of the crumbs of the old Jim Crow era still kind of left over and lingering in my town. For example, I was the first African American attorney to open up an office in my hometown since 1930,
Mm.
since William J.
That's pretty
Durham got his
awesome.
office. Yeah, he got his office burned down during a race riot, similar to what happened in Tulsa. And this was Thurgood Marshall's really good friend. And so, for me to come back home and to reopen shop, I think just kind of speaks to who I am as a person and how I want to change that narrative. But to answer your question, how I got out of that, it was just life. Growing up in my neighborhood, it was a very poor and working class neighborhood. My next door neighbors, some of my best friends, they were white people. They were going through the same struggles that we were.
Mm.
On the other side, it was Mexican Americans. And then my mother started dating a gentleman who was very pro black. He came with the Black Panther type rhetoric, and that's kind of the lens through which he viewed the world. And so, what one thing my mom did that kind of helped shape me the way I am now. She raised me to be very smart and to seek knowledge and to read a lot. She raised me to be successful. She wanted me to make a lot of money and to be a success. But on the other hand, she's very distrustful of very wealthy people and billionaires. So she was one of those who was, son, go out and do the right thing, make your money the right way. Don't go out and sell your soul for $1 billion. If you go out and you make something of yourself, come back home and pay it forward to the people who kind of helped you get to where you're going. And that's kind of how I live my life. That's why I went back home and opened up my law firm for the first 6 years versus just going to the city. But then also, seeing all the Black Lives Matter stuff and seeing those people lose their lives to all those police in such short spans of time, that was very rousing emotionally. That kind of got me caught up in that movement for a little while, but I quickly realized that it was a lot of spin by the media and the
Yeah.
people who I felt like who should have been doing something about it on the Democrat side, they were silent. And so that's when I really realized that, hey, I don't think this is a Democrat Republican type thing. I think it's just like a war of ideologies. Who's actually acting on behalf of the people, who's not. And then the main thing is, and this is the biggest tool that I have to help change other people's minds, is, my love for history, my love for American history in particular. And then my favorite portion of American history is the Reconstruction era. And so when you study about abolition and the abolitionist movement, and
Yeah.
you look at America through this lens, at least as far as being a black man. Now I look at America through this lens of, we were brought over here, but it was part of this bigger transactional machine type thing. It was economically driven.
Yep.
Absolutely, there were some people who were mean and hateful about it, but it was economically driven. You had people over here in America who hated it from day one. Those people don't get mentioned at all in history. In my household, we never talked about the John Browns. We never talked about the Charles Summers. All we talked about were the people who were evil and
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
towards our. We had to have this boogeyman, this villain. And what I teach my kids and why they look at this country different is I teach them more about the struggle of abolition, and in a more united front. So, we obviously, our ancestors were suffering the brunt of, chattel slavery.
Yep.
But we had people who were escaping. We had free blacks in this country since its founding, right? There were free blacks in the North. There were black slave owners in the South that
Yep.
I researched and found out
People
about.
don't want to talk about that part.
Yeah, some of the worst slave owners in the South were down in New Orleans, and they were black people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And when you learn about the facts, it kind of opens up your mind. And then too, I'm living in a world where the people who support my business don't look like me. The people who were trying to, discourage me from even trying to go to law school, they look like me. Okay, I came up with those people. If you go look in my comments right now and look at the people who are trying to discourage me from even running, these are not white people. These are the people who look like me. Okay.
Yep.
These are Democrats. Okay. And so I've learned just through life experience and kind of always being the underdog, that you can't really judge a book by its cover. When they tell you to look left, you got to look right too. just to make sure you're not being led astray. But like I said, every page I turned as I'm reading about the abolition and these abolitionists and how they gave their lives and they died to help us not only get free by just helping us escape from slavery outright, but once we got enough people free, you have people like Fred Douglass who had become literate. They welcomed him in and created a new political party so that we would have the political power and the clout and the organization to pass the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments.
Yep.
And I haven't seen any victories like that for the Black community in America since then. Okay, and so
Yeah, that's true.
when I look in terms of Democrat wins versus Republican wins, it's not even an argument for me. You know what I mean? I think we absolutely belong back with the party that we helped found.
Yep.
When we locked arms with good patriots in this country, you're going to have extremists and hateful people on both sides. But we've proven it that when we lock arms with good people, regardless of what their color is,
Yep.
we win as Americans, okay? And we get progress. And I think when people understand that and when they look at American history through that lens, it puts those hateful, racist people on an island by themselves. That's not American. Okay, and that's what this America First movement is. It's for all people, all colors, all creeds. But if you're coming here and you're wanting to hate another American for the color of their skin or for whatever superficial reason, then this America First movement isn't for you. You got to go find another movement.
That's truly inspiring because it speaks to a similar experience that I have, and that I was taught when I was raised, or I was conditioned to believe that enemies were people was based off of their, the way that they were born, and not necessarily, the content of their character or how it is that they treat you. And so my experiences clashed with what I was being raised to believe, so to speak. And it's interesting you also say that because I travel to Dallas a lot. I have a lot of friends over in Dallas. And the interesting thing about Dallas is that Dallas is a pretty liberal place. And I didn't realize that I didn't even realize that it was certain places in Texas that was as liberal as it is. But Dallas is pretty liberal. Also, the mayor of Dallas recently came out during the past election and said that he was changing his party. How do you navigate through a space where the majority of the people tend to vote a certain way and not necessarily vote based off of the policies, whatever it is that the person is representing, how it is that he's looking to actually improve the community or work in his districts, and help the people to become more successful and not lean on identity politics or a traditional mindset to vote a certain way just because that's the way that they've always voted. How do you navigate through that whole gauntlet of liberal city, all of that type of stuff?
I my first job is letting people know that I actually care about them. When I go out and I campaign, I'm knocking doors. I'm doing it the old school way. I'm not a very rich man. I don't have Soros money behind me. But what I do have is, the work ethic. God prepared me for this. My first job was selling Kirby vacuums door to door, and I did a pretty good
I
job of
did it
that.
too. I did it too.
You know what I mean? And so I've waited the tables and I've had to figure out ways of being able to connect with people on the fly, okay, and figure out what matters to them and what they want and how I can best serve them. And I loved waiting tables. I loved tending bar. This is one of my favorite jobs. If I wasn't an attorney, I would probably have a restaurant or something and be in the service business. And just, I love making people feel good. And so I think that matters to people. There's something about that when you're running to represent people, when they know that you really do care about them. It's not even, it starts to transcend political party at some point during a lot of these conversations, because, I'm finding people are saying things to me like, the conversation starts off with, what party are you with? If you're this, then get off my property. But, a few minutes later, after I've broken through the ice, I've got them committing to give me one vote, to just give me one opportunity. And it's not give this Republican an opportunity. It's give Sholdon an opportunity. Like, this kid is from here. Like, he shops at the same streets. He's sung in the same choirs. He's given Easter speeches at the same churches as my grandkids. Like, we need to give this young man an opportunity, because this is what we've hoped for. We've hoped that somebody would come out of this situation and go on to be able to do better things and then help us out. And that's what I am. That's what God has prepared me to be. And when I portray myself in that way to people and they're able to connect with me like that, it doesn't matter what party you're on. My policies are very common sense. My opponent has made this race fairly simple when it comes to policy because she's got no policies.
Right.
Okay, she's admitted that her whole shtick is criticism and dividing people and reminding people why they need to be outraged. My thing is solutions, uniting people, and reigniting people to want to get behind the American flag so we can win together. I mean, it's diametric opposites. You're either America first or you're not.
I was going to ask you what your thoughts were about Jasmine Crockett, because I don't necessarily look at her as a person that is putting forth policy or doing anything meaningful to change the narrative or even working with the current administration, because I think that that's important in order to get things done within your district or within the city that you serve. What do you think about Jasmine Crockett and her rhetoric, her recent rhetoric when it comes to Elon Musk, the Trump administration, people in general? What are your thoughts about what she's become versus how she's come into the game?
You know, first of all, she knows that she's not a good politician. Just fact of the matter, she's not good at the like the bare bone, like the pragmatic parts of the job, like the practical parts of the job, coming up with good legislation, building coalitions, getting laws passed, working them through committee, and making ideas go from just an idea to reality. She's never really done that. She does a good job of pretending and putting on this show. But I think what that's done is that's alienated her, obviously, away from Republicans, but even within her own party. I've been to DC twice since I announced my run. I just got back earlier this week. I was there for 4 days, and the general area is Jasmine Crockett is kind of wacky, right? In her own party, the majority of people in the Democratic Party don't even really take her seriously, and so her only means for existence at this point is to raise money for the Democratic Party after they failed abysmally in this past general election. They need a young firebrand to get out there and kind of ruffle feathers and say whatever to stay in the headlines. Jasmine, was more than happy to sign up for that role because, again, she's not here really to serve the people. She's here to play politics, play these political games so long as her personal brand is furthered. And so people see that now. She's come out and said all the things that I was saying when I first announced, and people would criticize me. "Oh, you can't say she just got her first job because she was a Black woman." And now she's come out and admitted that she got her first job because she was Black. She didn't know anything, didn't have any experience, and now those same people have to eat their words. And it's the same when it comes to the policy. I said she's never passed a law. And in fact, every time she's been given a position in leadership, she's failed. Like, she's tanked. She's left the organization or the district or whoever worse off than they were than when she came in. But, on the left, it's weird. It's like they tend to fail upwards. But, they've also never, you got this new wave of young Black conservatives, particularly young Black conservatives, who now we're getting in the fight. And it's hard for them to use all those old racist tropes against us the way that they can use against, say, like a young white conservative who were trying to run in TX30. You can't call me a sellout. My wife is Black. You can't call me an Uncle Tom because I spent my whole life fighting for everybody, Black, white, Mexican, everybody. You know what I mean? And so all those things that they traditionally try to use, they can't use against me. They're calling me this unicorn candidate, and they're trying to get me to throw my support behind her, which just goes to show, they like my policies and they like my style
really?
too. It's just a matter of control. Absolutely. Yeah, her people, they come into my DMs and they come to my events and they say, well, why don't you want to work with her? Why don't you work alongside her? Why are you trying to tear the Black woman down? And I'm just like, our policy.
Oh, no, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, look at her voting record. I would absolutely vote opposite. Everything she's done, I would have voted the opposite. So there's no way for us to work together. It's impossible.
What do you think about, because that kind of underscores the another question that I kind of had in the back of my mind and that I've always been curious about, because again, getting a peek behind the curtain and seeing how politics truly work. I mean, we all have an assumption. We all, from the outside looking in as just voters, we all have an assumption, but working within and seeing how things operate, how do you keep yourself, let's say hypothetically, right, for the sake of conversation, that it's a shoe-in, you win, you get the position, you wind up becoming a part of the Congress and everything. Like, how do you worry about being tainted? Because it seems like the longer that people remain in some of these positions, a lot of times they become a shell of what they campaign for. I recently watched a video of Nancy Pelosi back in 95, 96, where she was advocating for the exact same thing that Trump is implementing today as far as tariffs. Do you worry about, kind of the behind the scenes or becoming a part of the establishment once you get in the door, obviously assuming that you get in the door?
Absolutely not. I've never fallen victim to that. Give me 1 second. Hey, my laptop's about to die. Bring a charger. I'm so sorry.
No,
I've
that's
been on
real. I
this thing.
like that. I like that.
Bring a charger for the laptop.
That means you're a real human being.
Right? No, to answer your question, absolutely not. I don't have any fears of that. Luckily, I've had a little bit of a taste of all these different lifestyles. Like I've been around the famous rappers and the famous entertainers. I've had an opportunity of representing someone in the entertainment industry, seeing that fame, seeing how they make that fast money and the private jets and all that up close, just close enough to know that that's not something that I want for myself. Also, I'm just, I realized a long time ago, and I was raised to be like this, that fame and all those things, the materialism, right, and the things that glitter. To put it simply, I was raised to understand that everything that glitters isn't gold.
Yeah.
And so, you know what I mean? And I have people that I actually care about what they think about me. I'm still very grounded in my community. And just some things I just couldn't live with myself, because I know what it looks like when you've alienated yourself from your parents, from your cousins, all the people that you grew up loving, because you chose material or you chose fame and fortune, and now you can't come home for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I would rather be able to come home for Thanksgiving for the rest of my life and, be respectable and, have people show up to my funeral and actually be thankful that I lived my life the way that I lived, as opposed to building some castle or some fortress out there and having a bunch of fake rich friends. That's not the life that I envision for myself.
Yeah. It's almost like, it seems like once somebody becomes a Congress member or something, it's almost like a license to print money or something, because for whatever reason, they wind up becoming super successful and more successful than if they were, regular everyday citizens and they had to go into corporate America or something like that. What do you think about the Department of Government Efficiency
I love
and
it.
all of the fraud, waste, and abuse that they're uncovering, and how liberals or people that are a part of the Democrat Party are kind of reacting to that?
I love it. I love Doge. I love the cuts. I love the transparency. I love the fact that people are getting to actually bring it down to a ground level. What do my tax dollars actually pay for? For so
Yeah.
long, I know when I was a kid, it was, hey, you're driving on the roads, right? Pay the money, right? You go on an airplane and it doesn't crash, right? So just pay the money and don't ask any more questions. But now
Yeah.
that we've actually, we got someone in there asking the questions, and we're realizing that essentially we're being robbed because our roads aren't being improved. And, I look up and these planes don't look any better in 2025 than they did when I was a kid. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so where has the money actually been going? That's the most important thing. And if I am elected, that's one of my main priorities. Where has the money been going? And then we want to hold the people accountable who've been ripping this country off. It's not enough to just expose them in the media. These people need to be held accountable.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that there's a lot of issues that we shouldn't even be divided on. When I think about, because I would imagine, people in Texas were highly impacted by what was happening during the last 4 years as far as illegal migrants coming into the country, and, seeing that the federal government was literally suing Texas to open up your borders. And, as far as, she likes to call him Governor Hot Wheels. But I think that you guys have probably the best governor in the United States of America. What do you think about the divisiveness? Because again, I don't believe that every issue should be a Republican versus a Democrat issue. I don't know where we became divided as far as protecting our borders or making sure that our schools are funded and things like that. What do you think about the divisiveness? I mean, even in my own chat, obviously there's people that say, Anton, why do you tear down the black women? Because I believe in masculinity. Do you think that it is something else that's at play? Is it something bigger that's at play that's dividing us? Because every issue is a man versus woman, Republican versus Democrat. When I think that it's certain things that we probably should be aligned on. I mean, I don't think
Right.
that we should export our jobs to other countries. That should be here for Americans. What do you think about all of that?
No, I absolutely agree. I think that there are bigger forces at play. We have bigger problems in this country than man versus woman or these sports issues or whatever. There's something called globalism, and globalism is hold on, let me plug this
No,
laptop
go
in real
ahead.
quick.
Take your time. Do your thing.
All right, we're back. Okay, so globalism, there are people in this world who want, one world government. That's the easiest way I could put it. They feel like, for various reasons, some people think that it's a good thing, some a bad thing. But for whatever reason, there are people who they don't want to see an America as it exists, in a France and a Mexico. They don't want to see all these different nationalities and all these people who are clinging to this idea of what it means to be an American, or say like a French person or a German. They want to melt all that stuff away. They want to melt away the borders. They want this young generation to not even really know what it means to be an American, to not
Mm-hmm.
remember what it was like when America was great. They want this disconnect, right? Because I can remember when I was a kid, and I'm sure you can remember too. When we were children, we were connected to our elders. I was connected to my parents. We could laugh at a lot of the same jokes, and that was
Yeah.
because there was like this overlap. I watched a lot of the same TV shows that they watched. I laughed at the same jokes. I knew a lot of the same stars and celebrities that they knew. But nowadays, you look at it, I don't know anything about the stuff that my kid is into. I don't know any of these people. I cannot relate. And there's this disconnect, and that's by design. You look at all the divisive rhetoric from the radical left or the so called progressives. They're not even calling themselves Democrats anymore. It's by design.
Yeah.
So long as we can keep people divided and at each other's throats, they don't unite under that American flag. They don't work to make America great. They don't
That's
protect themselves.
crazy to me.
Yeah,
That
they
no,
don't
that
protect
that truly
themselves.
is crazy because I see people saying that they stand with China or they
Yeah,
stand with Mexico, and I'm like, because back in my day, and I was born in 1982 and raised in the 90s, like it was all still like America first. Like,
yes,
listen, it's almost like arguing with your brother. Like me and my brother can fight, but you can't talk about him, and it's a
exactly.
different dynamic today.
Yeah, so they don't want that. They don't want Americans feeling like that. They don't want us having that affinity, and they've done a good job of convincing a large block of our population to literally hate this country. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, anything that we try and do, they are opposed to it before they even hear the full idea, and they think they're on the side of right. And this is why, I don't hate these people. I'm not even really angry at these people. These people just need to be reminded
Yeah.
of what it looks like when we do come together, right? When we do lock arms and when we do win. And that's what my campaign is really about. I'm not really running on Democrat, Republican. I'm running on America first. It just so happens that my values and my principles and my ideals, policy wise, align with the Republican platform. I'm big
Yep.
on individual freedoms. I'm big on individual rights. I'm big on small central government. And then all the other powers that aren't given to the federal government under the Constitution, that's up to the states and up to your local government. But
Yep.
this requires a little bit of personal responsibility and accountability. You have to do the research. You have to know who your people are that you're electing. You can't get away with this just vote blue no matter who stuff anymore if you want the world to change. And I think that's what people are realizing.
Yeah, I agree. Final question, because I know that you have to go. And I hopefully I can get you back on a show.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, yeah, because this is great conversation. I think that local elections and local politics actually is more impactful and is more important than even what happens on a national level. I know the national level get all of the visibility and all of the promotional dollars and everything like that. But local elections, people tend not to participate as much as they do in national elections, right? How do you convince people, especially younger people, to get engaged, to find out what's going on, even in the national election? I find that it's a lot of people, they don't understand the millages, they don't understand the judges that's being elected, they don't understand even who's in their district or who's over what's going on from a congressional perspective. How do you get people more engaged? I know you said that you were hitting the streets and you was doing it old school. Do you think that there's a lack of, I don't want to say information, because the information and the knowledge is more accessible.
Right.
It's almost like people become disinterested if it's not a major election year? How do you get people to
Right.
participate more in local politics and then get more engaged so that they can understand the difference between a you and a Jasmine Crockett?
So I get the little bit of influence that I've been blessed to attain. I have to use that influence to highlight platforms like this. Like, we can't all be in a hurry to go to the big platforms that want to talk about the big salacious headlines like national news. You have to pay attention to the local outlets too, and the people who are investigating the local issues, and help those people get a bigger platform. And so that's another difference between myself and my opponent. Whereas she's racing to get to a red carpet, I'm much more
Yeah.
comfortable and much more interested in talking to, say, like a local journalist that is in tune with the beat of the local community. They can inform me about issues that are actually affecting me and my neighbors right here on the ground. And so we have to make those local issues sexier. We have to make getting involved in the process more fun. That's kind of the culture with my campaign. We actually just signed a lease on a new HQ in a very bustling area in TX30. And part of that space is to show people the culture of what we're trying to bring. Like, it's fun to be involved. It's fun to be empowered, not just involved, but empowered,
Yeah.
because that's what these people want. They want to be empowered. They go to these protests and they go online and they emote online because they want to be heard. And when you make the connection for them that, hey, when you elect someone who actually aligns with your values, not just the party that you subscribe to,
Yeah.
and not just being co-signed by this celebrity that you listen to their music, but do the research. Who's gonna vote in your place when they have the opportunity? And when you do things like that, win or lose, when you work to elect someone who is aligned with your policies, it just feels good. It feels honest and clean, and that's
Yeah.
how the process is supposed to go.
Listen, I'm a fan, and not just because we have the same last name, but
Yeah.
because I am a huge supporter of men doing the thing that's in the best interest of the community. And more importantly, I think that you are like really communicating the values and the things that I think actually changes the narrative and the dynamic of what happens within certain cities. I'm a fan. Hopefully, I can also come and visit you down there in Texas,
Bring
because
it.
again, I like to travel back and forth to Dallas a little bit. But more importantly, is there any final message that you would want to leave with the people prior to us, going off and then hopefully coming back at some other point so that we can have more conversations?
First, let me ask you, where are you from? Where are you based out
I am
of?
from Detroit, Michigan. I
Okay,
got
so
a
that's where you want.
lot of friends, a lot of followers down in Texas.
Okay. Well, cool. Next time I'm in Detroit, which I love Detroit, by the way. I didn't know you could just walk across a bridge and get to Canada and do all that type of cool stuff.
Literally
But yeah,
15 minutes. I look at Canada every single day.
absolutely. Whenever you come down, look me up. Love to take you around, get you some birria tacos or some steak or barbecue, whatever you're into. But
Uh,
I want to leave the listeners with this thing just about me. Just, a lot of people are saying a lot of things about both of us. Myself and my opponent. But I just want you to hear it from me. I didn't get into this race to go viral. I got into this thing because I've seen what it's like when a district like mine goes ignored, and I know what's possible when a real leader shows up with a plan and when people get behind them. And so I'm not asking for blind support. This is an extremely winnable race that I'm running. I'm really asking for a chance to prove that America's not dead yet, that good is not dead yet, that common sense and courage and real opportunity can still win. And so, if you support that, if you believe in this America First movement, then let's build something together. You can visit me online at danielsforus.com. You can sign up to volunteer. Please donate to the campaign so we can keep this machine going. But just know that I'm running to bring real representation to DC in 2026.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sholdon Daniels, thank you. I appreciate you for coming on the show, my friend.
Thank you.
And
I
you
appreciate
are
it.
definitely invited back anytime you want to come on, anytime you want to discuss anytime you want to get a message out to the people. You are always welcome to come and use this platform, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on.
All right. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sholdon Daniels, we appreciate him for coming on, and I think that he's a great person. I really do. Listen, we got to get listen, Sholdon is the nice person, right? He's going to say all of the nice things, and I think that that's truly him. I truly believe that he is a nice person. But we got to get this crazy lady up out of there. Jasmine Crockett is a menace to the people. She's a menace to society, in my opinion. You know me, I'm just going to keep it 100 and say what it is that I believe in what I say. Really good guy. I love him, transparent. We got to get the right people in office. It's as simple as that. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications. Let me read some of these super chats because we jumped right into the show today. We got right into the mire. Let me read some of the super chats, and I'm going to also read some of the cash apps. First of all, I appreciate my girl Molly. Molly held me down over the weekend, all right? Molly held me down. Also, I want to give a shout out to Kay Cooper. Kay Cooper, thank you for wishing me a happy birthday. Shaquille Brown, thank you, Shaquille Brown. Cam Combe, thank you, my friend. Thank you for holding me down. Also, Mike That Dude. What up, Mike That Dude? I appreciate you. And Shamira McKay says, imagine being raised by AD. Cheat code unlocked. Thank you. Let me read some of the super chats, and let me just let y'all know, I don't ask for it, so you are not required to give anything, but we always want to acknowledge and appreciate the people that pour into the platform the most. Jason Jocelyn says, you should visit Beaumont, California. What's in Beaumont? Don the Architect says, happy birthday, AD, transition and the side hustle to my full-time business. Blessed for the opportunity to do so and grateful for the gems in the game that you deliver each and every day. Time to kill what we eat. Shout out to Don the Architect. I love that. Mr. Lott in the building, my guy. Shout out to Mr. Lott. Says, happy belated birthday, bro. Salute to the Chasers. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. I'm putting something in there today, this afternoon. Paul Johnson says, we reviewed that video on the AD channel about the YNs who crashed out in South Carolina. The lady I reviewed it with had the nerve to blame police not being present in the mall. No accountability. Yeah, that was crazy. They was just shooting up. It's crazy. How you gonna blame the police for YN shooting up a mall? Alvin S says, happy belated birthday, AD. Wishing you and your family good health and continued blessings upon blessings. In Jesus' name, amen. Shout out to Alvin S. Mr. Joe in the building says, happy birthday. Thank you for adding so much value to my life. God bless. Thank you, Mr. Joe. We appreciate you out here. AD says, I'll be projecting, that is. Me University says, happy birthday. Happy B-Day. Shout out to you, Me University. I appreciate you. King Manasseh. Happy birthday, Anton. I hope you enjoyed your day to the fullest. Recently celebrated my first anniversary with my wife. Talk about it. I love that. Cynthia Haynes says, applause, Sir Anton Daniels and Sir Sholdon Daniels, who are an extremely extraordinary, spectacular black man. Shout out to Sholdon Daniels. Young Gladiator says, as a registered Texas voter, what are his thoughts on my family court laws particularly? I can get him on here and I'm going to ask him that. That's a really good question. Next time I have Sholdon on, I'm planning on having him on again. Next time I have him on again, I'm going to ask y'all for a list of questions, and then I can ask him directly. Shout out to Mika. Y'all can also look at his interview that he did with Mika on her Red Cup podcast. Go and check that out. Mika says, enjoyed talking with him this weekend. Let's go, AD. Shout out to Mika. Philip Sadiq says, happy birthday, Anton. Keep doing all of this for us. I'm on it, Philip. I'm on it, my guy. All right, y'all. Y'all ready to continue on with the show? Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's pivot for a minute. Oh, man. That ain't right. All right, let me pivot. Let me get this together. Got to put that up there. Because I want to talk about Josh Shapiro. All right? I want to talk about Josh Shapiro, and we got to have a conversation about this because I don't care what side of the aisle that you're on. This should never happen to anybody, all right? So there was an arson attack on Josh Shapiro's home. I believe he's the governor of Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. arson attack on his home. This is important for us to bring to the front of the congregation. First, let me show you what happened, and then we'll go and revisit this.
This morning, a man is charged in connection with an arson
shortly.
at the Pennsylvania governor's residence while Governor Shapiro and his family slept inside. Pennsylvania State Police said that Shapiro and his family were evacuated around 2 o'clock Sunday after the home was set on fire. No one was injured, but as you can see, the fire caused significant damage to the home.
We do know that this attack was targeted. We don't know the person's specific motive yet, but we do know a few truths. First, this type of violence is not okay.
Joining me now, CNN's Gene Casares. Wow, this is, Josh Shapiro. They were sleeping in the home. They had just celebrated Passover, and someone set their home on fire. What can you tell us?
Well, we've got the criminal complaint now, and in fact, we have got a lot of information. First of all, the charges. The top charge is attempted homicide.
Good.
That this person tried to kill the people inside with these homemade incendiary devices. Next, aggravated arson.
Good.
We also have burglary of a home. And then we have, as the fifth count, terrorism. Cody Balmer is the name of the suspect who has been arrested. He actually had a friend of his, a female, call police to tell them he wanted to turn himself in. He turned himself in. He was given his Miranda rights, but he started to talk. Here's what we know. He said that he walked about a mile to get to the house. And that's when he he jumped the fence, threw the first incendiary device into a room. Police tell us that was the piano room. And then it took off. And then he went to the second window he saw and threw a second incendiary device in. That would be the dining room. It took off. He said it was Heineken beer bottles that he had put gasoline in. He jumped through the second window. He was actually in the mansion at that point, and then finished his business and left. He was asked by police, did you believe that somebody was going to be asleep in the house at that time? He said, yeah, I knew that was a possibility. That's important.
Yep.
State of mind,
Yep.
that goes to intent to want to kill who was ever in that home. He said he hated the governor. Now, motive is not in this description right here. He may have told them more, but they don't need motive. They need the elements. But here is what the governor had to say the family was doing the night before.
Hear me on this. We celebrated our faith last night proudly, and in a few hours, we will celebrate our second Seder of Passover again proudly. No one will deter me or my family or any Pennsylvanian from celebrating their faith openly and proudly.
So then the police also asked the defendant, what would you have done if the governor had confronted you in the mansion? He said, I would have taken my hammer and I would have started to hit him. And they found, Sarah, a sledgehammer at his home.
So let me, because I'm going to play a little bit more of this, because I need y'all to grasp the full story. I want you to really understand what's going on out here in this culture. I don't like far left. I don't like far right. I don't like extremes of anything. Even the word of God says you have to be temperate in all things. The same way that I was absolutely positively disgusted at the assassination attempt on Trump's life is the same way that I'm disgusted about this guy throwing Molotov cocktails inside of the home of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Now, a lot of people know, or some people may not know, but I'll fill you in because I want you to really understand exactly what's going on. Josh Shapiro was considered to be a vice presidential candidate of Kamala Harris prior to her selecting Tim Walz, right? If you were following everything with politics at that time, or if you were following me, you know that I mentioned Josh Shapiro. Again, he was considered to be the vice presidential candidate for Kamala Harris because they felt like they really, really needed to win Pennsylvania, okay? But here's the thing. Even though he's a Democrat, even though he's liberal. I may not agree with his politics, but I damn sure 100%, 100% don't agree with anybody trying to take the life of somebody else because they do not agree with them or they hate them. I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you're Republican. I know that there's some people that's on the right that would celebrate this. That, oh, you know what? It ain't no big deal. When an assassination attempt was made on Trump's life, that shouldn't have been anything that people was debating on. You shouldn't have seen liberals on the news talking about, well, his rhetoric. No. Under no circumstance should we have, and I'm not even just talking about public figures or politicians or people in certain positions. I don't believe. I remember when they did that player number 2, Luigi, and he went and killed the CEO of one of the United Healthcare subsidiaries. I don't believe that people should be able to put their hands on or try to kill or blow up the house and burn down the house for the family of somebody because they don't like them or agree with them or don't like their policies or don't like the way that they do business. You cannot keep your hands and keep your hands in your own pocket. Keep your Molotov cocktails. They don't want to hurt themselves. They just want to hurt everybody else. I don't believe that anybody should be putting their hands on anybody, and I don't believe in extremities on either side of the aisle. This is something that should not be bipartisan. That should be bipartisan. This is not something that we should be debating. We should be able to respectfully disagree or to respect other people's votes or whatever it is without going to extremities. The same smoke that I had for the people that was out there torching Tesla dealerships, and I think that they should be charged with terrorism, is the same way that I think that this person should be charged and thrown into jail for life. His kids, his wife was in there sleeping. This is another reason why I could never see myself running as a politician, because it's too extreme. People are out of their mind. They're out of their mind. This should never happen, ever, under any circumstance.
That is terrifying. Gene, I know you got this information just a few moments ago, and you really sort of broke down why terrorism is one of the charges there.
Somebody said paid for by Democrats. Y'all, listen, y'all don't have no human anything in you. Like, you don't have no empathy whatsoever. You think that a Democrat paid them to throw it inside of a Democrat's home, throw Molotov cocktails in the home of the people that's sleeping. Come on, stop. Unless some evidence somewhere proves otherwise, we take this at face value, and we have to extend empathy, and we have to also hold the people accountable that are trying to do the most, because you make everybody look bad. One of the most important things or reasons why I, as a person that is conservative and also vote Republican as of right now, condemn extreme far activities is because it makes us look bad. You know how, aside from the human aspect of it, you know how we look at Democrats a lot of times when I call them raging liberals, because they don't have any logic to why they think the way that they do sometimes. They just blindly angry and mad and want to just see everybody gone. And I believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion until you have something to disagree with me about. Then I just want to kill you. We need to burn down Elon Musk's dealerships. You make us look bad when you espouse some of the same views that I have politically, and then you go to extreme levels to hate somebody that's on the opposite side, instead of mobilizing and campaigning and doing things that actually would help your community and redirecting that energy. You make conservatives look bad if you are a conservative that is extreme and doing things against people that we don't necessarily agree with. We should be able to respectfully disagree. We should be able to use our platforms to mobilize votes. We should be able to do that stuff, but you make everybody look bad. And it's the same energy that I have for raging liberals is the same energy that I have for somebody that said that they hate Josh Shapiro and is throwing Molotov cocktails inside of his home when his family sleeps. Nobody should have to deal with that nonsense.
We'll be learning more. Thank you so much for that. It was great.
CNN's Danny Freeman has more now from Philadelphia.
It was an extremely troubling.
It doesn't matter if insurance pays for a whole new home. His children was sleeping with that. His children probably is not going to be able to sleep for a long time because they got PTSD. Like, come on, y'all, jump out of the matrix for 1 second. Forget the insurance. The first thing that happens when somebody gets into an accident and you find out that it's somebody that's meaningful close to you, let's say your mother get into an accident. The first thing you do when you pick up the phone is you say, hey, is everything okay? You want to know that they're safe. You want to know that they didn't break any bones. You want to make sure that nothing happened, that they didn't have a brain injury. We take the human side of things first, and then we start to deal with whatever residual effect or the stuff, because you can replace stuff. But your life is more valuable than whatever it is, that thing that was in it. So you automatically pick up the phone and say, hey, are you safe first? You don't automatically lean into, well, the insurance can pay. No, this is children. Are they okay? What's their mindset?
And frightening night in Pennsylvania's capital after Governor Josh Shapiro's mansion, the governor's mansion residence, was set on fire intentionally, according to Pennsylvania State Police. The main headline that we learned Sunday afternoon is that there was a suspect taken into custody, 38-year-old Cody Balmer, who will be charged with attempted murder, terrorism, aggravated arson, and aggravated assault. That's according to the Dauphin County District Attorney. But here's a little bit of a timeline of the best that we understand as to how this all unfolded. On Saturday evening, Governor Josh Shapiro was holding a Passover Seder for the first night of the Jewish holiday of Passover. He was with his family. He had guests over at the governor's residence as well. They all then went to sleep. And then at some point in the middle of the night, just before 2 a.m., Pennsylvania State Police say this man, Balmer, jumped a fence at the governor's residence, evaded state troopers who at that time actually realized that there had been a breach. The man was then able to break into the residence.
So there you guys go. Now for the people that had a question, say, hey, where was the state troopers? They're adding more context into the conversation.
Set fire to the residence, escaped then by jumping back over the fence. He had homemade incendiary devices on him, according to Pennsylvania State Police. Then at 2 a.m., Governor Shapiro said that he and his family and some of his guests who were staying over were woken up by bangs on the door because first responders were alerting him that part of the residence was on fire. Thankfully, though, the fire was in a different part of the building from where the governor, his wife, family, and guests were. And first responders were able to knock that fire down. Amazingly, no one was injured. But again, now there is a multi-agency investigation ongoing into exactly what happened here. The investigation being led by the Pennsylvania State Police, but also being assisted by the FBI. And I just want you to listen to how Governor Shapiro characterized what he was feeling after this entire incident, clearly overwhelmed by the level of support that he's received from so many across the country after this incident. But also he said that he will not be deterred by violence from doing his job or by practicing his faith.
And he shouldn't.
This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society.
It is.
And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other, directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay.
Now, Pennsylvania State Police investigators
But you know, this is one of the reasons why
ongoing.
I was saying that, you know, when AOC and Jasmine Crockett and Bernie Sanders, they told the line on pushing people to, you know, well, we're going to protest the Elon Musk, and I don't care if his whole dealership's burned down. And then they'll come back and say, well, I didn't tell them to burn the dealership down. I just said that I wouldn't care because he's a billionaire. It's like, yo. Come on. Everything is not a social media post. Everything is not a soundbite. These are people's lives and jobs and resources and issues and problems. And, you know, somebody just threw a Molotov cocktail through the window. This is real life. This ain't no video game.
And they're also reviewing security protocols at the governor's residence. At this time, CNN has not been able to get in contact with an attorney for Balmer. Danny Freeman, CNN, Philadelphia.
What questions do you still?
So, you know, long story short, again, I wanted to bring this to y'all attention because we have to have logic. We have to have reason. We can't just jump off the face of the earth because you don't necessarily like somebody or you disagree with them, or all of a sudden, you know, you just gonna crash out and be a crash dummy. That's not cool. It's not kosher. That's not how you do things. That's not how you handle business. That's not how we are, we handle things as a mature adult. We have to be very, very careful with how it is that we go about doing things. It's not right. Let me go ahead and read some of these super chats, and then we're going to go ahead and continue on with the show. Out of y'all mind. Shout out to Phoenix. Blaze says, happy birthday to you, Anton. By the way, the crazy lady that punched the interview lady with the blue dress was arrested recently. Send that to me. Email it to me. I need to see it. It's going to be a review video today. Lucid Experience says, happy birthday, AD. Continue to bring the hard conversations to the forefront. May not always agree, but I fully respect the grind and back to work. Shout out to you, Lucid Experience. Yeah, we could disagree respectfully. Happy birthday, brother says, I shouldn't be talking. I appreciate you. Happy birthday, Anton says, Latrell M. Thank you, my friend. Alan Trent says, I just want to know if you can address the China exposing that the fake and the real are the same. Yeah, I've been seeing that. I can do a live stream about that tomorrow. Absolutely. I don't want to give my thoughts on it until I actually see it, until I actually do a deeper dive on it. So I'll add that as a part of the show tomorrow. Young Gladiator says, by the way, did you see the change in Texas law regarding child support being retroactive to the time of conception? Yep, I did a review video on the Anton Daniels channel. We also discussed it on After Hours. I am aware it is retroactive to the time that the child gave birth. Gerald Sparrow, which is an additional 9 months. Gerald Sparrow says, Sholdon was much more refreshing to hear. I wish he was in Mississippi. Yeah, he's a really good dude. Really good dude. Wayne Leonard. What up, Wayne? I appreciate you. Says, happy belated birthday, Mr. Daniels. This is Chris. I wanted to extend my appreciation for the coaching calls these last couple of years. I appreciate you. I appreciate you too, Wayne. Wayne. Why is your name Wayne if it's Chris? Don't worry about it. We're just going to assume that everything is all good. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's pivot for a minute and let's get into tariffs. All right, so there was some conversations that was being had across the board, right? To bring y'all up to speed, Trump has been implementing reciprocal tariffs against China to the tune of about 145% right now, because China had reacted and they said that they was going to raise it to 125%. So China said, we not scared, but then at the same time, they have not reacted to Trump's tariffs, in which he basically went to 145%. Now, this is setting off all kind of disagreements, right? You see, listen, every single platform, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, I am being flooded with Chinese people on my timeline talking about, we don't need American products because I don't have American products in my home. Or some other propaganda where Chinese people are saying, oh my God, this is really devastating. Or other people saying, well, look, these are how Nike's is made. And so y'all was getting fake products anyway. I am being flooded, absolutely flooded with Asian content about what it is that we should and shouldn't be doing inside of the United States of America. So the first thing that I want to say is be careful. Be careful with what you consume, because there is a lot of information out there and a lot of people are trying to influence the United States of America, Americans, to do what they want to do on a global scale. Let's get into it and let's deep dive, and I'm going to give you all the latest of what's going on with the tariffs.
Out of the escalating trade war with China and those mixed messages from the White House, President Trump is now signaling new tariffs on
I always like to present information from different platforms, and then we're going to break it down in our own, from our own perspective and in our own words.
Electronics after carving out exceptions last week. Senior political correspondent Rachel Scott is at the White House. Good morning, Rachel.
George, good morning to you. And this one has sparked a lot of confusion. The Trump administration putting in place exemptions for some electronics like smartphones and laptops. But now the president suggesting that those are only temporary and that even more tariffs are on the way.
This morning, White House whiplash. Just days after excluding smartphones, computers, and other electronics from the new steep tariffs imposed on China, the president suggesting those exemptions are temporary. On Air Force One, the president asked about the mixed signals.
There's some ambiguity, or at least some questions about whether there were exceptions or exemptions.
There shouldn't be ambiguity. We have a tremendous country.
And now promising to impose even more tariffs on semiconductors and chips, which are essential to power everything from cell phones to cars.
Like we did with steel, like we did with automobiles, like we did with aluminum, which are now fully on. We'll be doing that with semiconductors, with chips, and numerous other things. And that'll take place in the very near future.
The majority of Apple iPhones are assembled in China, and without an exemption to Trump's massive 145% tariff on Chinese goods, financial services firm UBS estimates the cost of a new iPhone 16 Pro Max could skyrocket by $950.
Now, that's not true. All right. The first thing that I do agree with the tariffs, but that is not true. And let me tell you why it's not true. Because Apple doesn't only manufacture iPhones inside of China. Apple has seen this a long ways away, and Apple has started to take steps to manufacture iPhones in other countries outside of China. It's one of the reasons why they started to fortify their relationship over in India. And again, they make their iPhones outside of China also. Now, it doesn't limit them from being able to make a lot of the parts and iPhones inside of China. And that's why when you open up the package, it says designed by Apple in California, but it doesn't tell you where it's manufactured. Apple manufactures iPhones all over the world, okay? They manufacture the majority of their iPhones over in China, but they've expanded to diversify to not have been impacted by what is happening today inside of tariffs. So what could possibly happen, and I'm going to go over this on the next Stock Club because I always like to bring information and insight, and I don't want y'all to just lean into random information of somebody telling you something, but they don't really know what they're talking about. What could happen is Apple will allocate the majority of what they manufacture over in China to the rest of the world and then allocate what they're making in other countries in order to avoid the tariff exemption to the United States of America, while at the same time focusing on building plants because they've allocated hundreds of billions of dollars to have manufacturing and assembly over here in the United States of America. And this is why we listen to the conference calls. This is why we listen to the quarterly calls. This is why we understand and we actually watch Market Watch and Bloomberg, and we look at Yahoo Finance and we look at the charts. And so I am following this closely, fiercely. Anybody that's in the Patreon that was a part of the last Stock Club that we just did last Wednesday, and then I think we're going to do Block Club this Wednesday. Anybody that's a part of the Patreon, you know that I am keenly aware and very, very focused on studying each and every detail as far as the manufacturing process, logistics, so on and so forth. So that is not true. The iPhones will not cost $950 more. They are going to relatively hold the price or raise it slightly, but it can be manufactured outside of China because they do have manufacturing facilities, and then they can allocate a lot of what it is that they manufacture over in China to China and the rest of the world in order to try to avoid tariffs while they build inside of the United States of America. But there still needs to be pressure on these automakers, on these manufacturers, on these phone makers, on all of these devices, all of these things that we consume inside of the United States of America. There needs to be an and, not an or. You do this, and you also make sure that you bolster and start to bring jobs inside of the United States of America. Let's continue.
The president says America should no longer rely on China to manufacture those products.
We want to make our chips and semiconductors and other things in our country.
But experts warn that could take time.
China is very intertwined with our economy, and it's very hard to find easy substitutes to many of these imports.
And this morning,
somebody said it's a good thing I don't use iPhones. Listen. Everything that's a part of this device. Okay, I'll give you an example. And again, I'm not going to deep dive into Stock Club level content, but I'm going to give y'all some insight. These cameras, for example, these may be made by Sony. Sony has a large contract with Apple to manufacture the cameras. Well, if anybody knows where Sony is located, Samsung, I believe that they have a large contract to manufacture the OLED displays and the screens that goes into most smartphones, including the iPhone. These iPhones, these Samsung devices, all of these different devices that you buy, and it doesn't matter whether you have an iPhone or whether you're using an Android device, they are all made in the same places by the same companies and the same contractors and the same manufacturers. So don't think that it's just an iPhone. People use an iPhone as an example to illustrate a point, to give you a better understanding of how tariffs are going to work. But it doesn't mean that it's only limited to all of the parts, all of the semiconductor chips. This is why we're trying to untangle ourselves with the rest of the world. We don't want to be interdependent on other people for our own products and our own security, our own national security. It is a national security issue when you have the majority of the products that's being manufactured over in other countries. This is the thing that Trump is doing. He's undoing decades and decades and decades of neglect from politicians and manufacturers from years before. This is the importance of us forcing companies to bring jobs back to the United States of America. Not just national security, but we don't want to continue to enrich other nations thinking that they're giving us a discount, and they're not. They're not passing off the costs. They're just continuing to bolster up their finances and expedite jobs outside of the United States of America. This is why Trump is doing this. This is the whole idea behind making America great again, is because we are not doing this just for ourselves. We're doing this for our children. We're doing this for our grandchildren. We're doing it for the generations that come after us. It's not just about us. It's not about how you feel. Oh man, I don't want an iPhone. You don't even need a new one. You can't afford one if you needed one. You financing the one that you got. That's why your phone bill is so high. That's why your phone bill is so high, because you keep financing your iPhones. We're not talking about you, Willis. When will people of this culture, and this is the thing that I was talking about over the weekend, we failed. Boomers, I ain't even going to say us. Boomers have failed America. They were so selfish on focusing on what they think was best for them that they didn't make a decision that was best for everybody, understanding that they were going to benefit along with. You don't have to take 100% of the profits. You can take 75% of the profits and then make sure that you invest the other 25% back into making sure that you keep the ladder down so other people can pull themselves up. You can actually help other people get rich while you're getting rich at the same time. When I build a home, I go with all local contractors. I may spend an extra $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in the entirety of the cost of the home. And that's okay, because I can afford it. And I'm still going to be super profitable. I can extend grace over to the renters. I don't have to jack it up as high as I possibly can just because all of the areas around me. Am I solidly profitable? Is it profitable for me to do this? And can I duplicate the process? Yes, I can. They can live comfortably. I don't have a whole lot of turnover. My neighbors can all benefit. The guy literally that lives next door to me, he's going to be doing some of the work in the next houses. He's building some of the decks. The person that is the parent in the taekwondo with my daughter, they going to be doing some of the wind. Like, you can help other people get rich and you can be successful at the same time. But we so greedy. We were so selfish, and it started with the politicians. It lended itself to the business owners. Ultimately, it was impacting the voters and the people that was doing the things. And that's why do you, listen, I'll give you all an example. Why do you think that there was so much money starting to be poured into elections? Kamala Harris' campaign, it probably spent way more. That was just her campaign. Had nothing to do with super PACs, had nothing to do with all. Billions upon billions of billions and billions and billions of dollars is being spent during national elections. Why do you think that is? If it's so surface level, if it's all just about an iPhone, it's all just about trade, why do you think that they are spending billions of dollars on both sides of an election? That is the truest, most capitalistic form of influencing what's happening inside of our culture. We're finally getting to the point where we can reset it. Hey man, hit the reset button. Let's go back to what it is that we did great. Let's get back to making American vehicles, get back to making American phone. Let's do America first, and then we're going to figure out what's going on with the rest of the world. That's why. Because previous generations and other people are so selfish, they so self-centered that they will sell out everybody else just to get rich on their own. They will sell out everybody else, decimate industry, cities, jobs, local municipalities, defunding schools so that they can get a cheaper swimsuit, so that you can save $72 on your car, and they not going to pass on the cost to you. You will destroy entire industries for a product that you don't even plan on buying. If you think about...
China is retaliating, halting exports of magnets critical to the assembly of American cars and other electronics, from drones to robots. As the president reveals another target.
How many of y'all bought a robot recently? How many of y'all bought a drone recently? And that's going to change the dynamics of your life daily. How many of y'all actually need, you know why we overspend and we consume? Because we got a bunch of stuff that we don't need. A bunch of stuff being shipped to us that we just got, we hoarders. That's all we are, we hoarders. Inside, we got enough of this. I want to go straight over to the Trump gaggle, press gaggle. We are hoarders. If you go through your house, we have a whole bunch of nothing. You ever been to a 50-year-old woman's house? I have. You ever been to a 50-year-old woman's house? Want me to tell you what they got in there? First thing you're going to see, fake plants. Made in China and Indonesia. Made in Thailand. Fake plants to spruce things up. Y'all want me to start capping on your 50-year-old girlfriend and mother? Because I'm going to tell you, everything she got in there, tacky, ain't got no sense of style, just buying stuff. Just filling up her house with a whole bunch of fake stuff. Everything in there is fake. Artificial everything. I ain't going to get on it. Plastic plants, vases everywhere, gold everywhere, like pictures everywhere that don't make no sense, paintings that ain't cohesive. No design language in there, just popcorn ceilings and fake everything from China. Temu, China. She got a foot massager. Her fat feet can't even fit inside of the foot massager. But ooh, her house looked just like a QVC commercial. Fake handbags everywhere that she got straight off the street. Keep on taking flights to New York to buy a fake handbag. Tacky. A bunch of garbage that you don't even need. We'll get there. We'll get there. We're going to get there. Make sure y'all hit it. I'm going to say it. Somebody offended because they looking at their house like, 37 pair of Crocs. 37 pair of Crocs. How many more Crocs you need, family? Because at some point you have to look at it as a luxury, not a must-have. But I need my Crocs. Make sure you hit a like for the algorithm. Your mama's favorite show was QVC. Make sure you hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Shout out to Smooth Artist. AD, do you believe other countries are going to start working together with China to no longer be relying on American U.S. currency? I'm going to talk about that. I got a segment of the show where I plan on talking about. Somebody hit the dislike button at that. That's okay. We cool. What's all right? Dislike is just as valuable as a like. I appreciate you. Smooth Artist, I'm going to talk about that a little later on in the show. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's continue over. Trump, because we always get the sound bites. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to go directly to the source. So this is Trump, the most transparent president of all time. The most transparent president of all time. This is Trump on Air Force One at 2 in the morning last night, telling the press exactly what he thinks about the incoming tariffs and what else is going on inside of the United States of America.
I think most of you have seen they released my physical. I did the physical on Friday, and I understand it was a very good report.
Talk to him, Trump.
Perfect. And I took a cognitive exam, and I would challenge anybody here to meet those marks because I have a perfect mark. Were you impressed by that?
I am impressed, and I'm not going to take that test.
But you're not that surprised, right?
Not surprised at all.
You aren't. It's good. I have a lot of respect for you as a reporter. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Could you give us
You always have questions.
I always have a question. What is your
They're going to have to learn how to mute the background noise of the plane somehow because nobody has had this level of access into Trump and him talking directly to the people and taking questions.
message to markets tomorrow? There's some ambiguity or at least some questions about whether there were exceptions or exemptions.
There shouldn't be ambiguity. We have a tremendous country. We have a country that's much richer today than it was a few months ago. We have a financial system that's very respected, and we're going to do great. And we were taken advantage of and ripped off by every country all over the world, almost, just about. They laughed at us. We were run by foolish people, and they took advantage of our country, and we're just not going to let that happen anymore.
In terms of the big, beautiful bill,
right?
When do you expect that to get done?
Well, I hope soon. The big, beautiful bill. It's the big, beautiful tax cuts, really, and regulation cuts and many other things. It passed its first test, as you know, the last couple of weeks, but particularly during last week, where we had a vote. We won in the House, we won in the Senate, and that was a big chunk of it. And now they're going to eventually take, pretty soon, a final vote. And the big, beautiful tax cuts and regulation cuts and all of the other things that are included in there will go into effect. And I think it'll be probably the largest tax cuts in the history of our country.
Yes.
The most comprehensive regulation
we
cuts
need tax cuts
in the history of our country, and many, many other things, including border wall money. We built 571 miles of wall, but now we can add to it. As you know, we've just concluded a period of time where the border was the most secure it's been in the history of our country. We're very proud of that. And the other week, a couple of weeks ago, last week actually, 5 people came in, 5. And under Biden, it was 500,000 people came in. What they've done to our country should never be forgotten. Never be forgotten. What they've done, and that the news hasn't reported it correctly, is a disgrace. But what they've done to our country to allow these millions and millions of people in from prisons and mental institutions and sane asylums should never be forgotten. Because we're going to be living with that for a long time. This is tremendous work, tremendous effort. It's one thing, they cause massive inflation, they cause a lot of problems. But what they've done to our border and to our country, you should never forget that. And you should never, as journalists, allow people to forget it. Yeah.
Mr. President, can you talk a little bit about the semiconductor tariff that you posted on Truth Social today? What is the timeline for that? And I believe it was Jameson Greer said today that those will not be negotiable. Once those tariffs are in place, they're non-negotiable. Is that right?
But the tariffs will be in place in the not distant future because, as you know, like we did with steel, like we did with automobiles, like we did with aluminum, which are now fully on, we'll be doing that with semiconductors, with chips, and numerous other things. And that'll take place in the very near future.
And all the things.
That's, I think that's a phenomenal threat, too. Because basically, Trump is going line by line. The longer that this tariff war goes on, he's basically going line by line and threatening every single industry inside of China. China is the #1 target of this thing. I explained it to y'all last week. They're the #1 target because they're the ones that's the biggest offenders of world trade. They've been the ones that have been stealing all of the technology. They're the ones that we've been in an arms race with semiconductor chips. They've been stealing secrets. They didn't steal so much from the United States of America, and they're using all of this stuff to continue to enrich themselves. They've been bad actors of the world. So now, well, I'm going to save that part of it. Let's continue to hear what Trump got to say.
And what we did is we want to uncomplicate it from a lot of companies because that's really where it should be.
Somebody said it earlier. They said Trump wearing a suit at 2 a.m. on Air Force One. He don't slip, do he? You know, that kind of inspired me too. It did inspire me. I said, you know what? If the president can wear a suit every single day, the only time that you do not see him wearing a suit is when he's golfing. And then he has on a golf shirt because obviously you can't golf in a suit. The only time that you see him not wearing a suit is when he's golfing. Every other time that he's in front of the press, and see, I notice these little details. I pay attention to stuff like that. He don't ever come out unless he got on a suit. Never, ever. Don't matter what time of the day. He's given unprecedented access. This dude he never misses. That's pretty inspiring to me.
Ideally, and we wanted to uncomplicate it from a lot of other companies because we want to make our chips and semiconductors and other things in our country. And I will tell you, another one is pharmaceuticals, drugs and pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, he had on a suit at UFC. He sure did have on a suit at UFC. You're right, MJ Avant.
We want to make our drugs in this country. And by placing a tariff on...
Yeah, I'm about to change. I'm about to switch up. 43 is going to be different for me. 43 going to be different for me.
Companies that are not in this country, they're going to move into our country, and we're going to have our drugs made in the United States so that in case of war, in case of whatever, we're not relying on China and various other countries to supply us with drugs, which is not a good idea. And it'll happen very fast. It'll all happen very fast.
Do you know what rate the semiconductor tariff?
I'm going to be announcing it over the next week.
Can you confirm reports that the Social Security Administration has classified thousands of immigrants as dead, even though they're still living?
That's what I hear. I mean, that's what has been reported to me. Dead and also very inaccurately. And from the standpoint of Social Security, it's a horrible thing. From the standpoint of the strength of Social Security, when you take dead people out and all of the people that they're talking about that should not be in there, it's going to make our system much stronger. We're making Social Security stronger. The Democrats are destroying Social Security. Medicare and Medicaid also, yes.
Do you have a reaction to Russia's Palm Sunday attack on Ukraine?
I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake, but I think it's a horrible thing. I think the whole war is a horrible thing. I think the war is, for that war to have started, is an abuse of power. This country would have never allowed that war to have started if I were president. That war is a shame. Millions of people are dead that should be alive. Cities are being destroyed all over Ukraine. The whole culture is gone. It's certainly very severely hurt. You know, the chapels, the churches, the spirals, all of the things that they had in Ukraine were among the most beautiful anywhere in the world. Most of them are knocked down and blown up into a million pieces. But most importantly, you have millions of people dead that shouldn't be dead. Think of it. Think of what a rigged election means. We would have had we wouldn't have had the war in Ukraine. We wouldn't have had the Russia-Ukraine situation. We wouldn't have had October 7th, Israel, the Middle East. We wouldn't have had inflation. We wouldn't have had the most embarrassing day or a period in the history of our country. That's Afghanistan. One of the most embarrassing moments in the history of our country, Afghanistan. All of these things wouldn't have taken place. Think of it. We wouldn't have had inflation. But millions of people would be alive except for the fact that the election were rigged, because that war would have never started and Putin never would have started that war.
I think that it's actually a good thing that all of this stuff happened and all of this residual effect, the fallout and stuff. I actually think it's a good thing because I don't believe that we really appreciated Trump in his first term. And I don't think that we would have appreciated him in his second term. And it's also a possibility that Democrats would have been able to seize power after his second term because we wouldn't have had the opportunity to see how great he really is or appreciate him until we got Biden. Until we got Biden and Kamala Harris, it was no way that we was going to truly be able to appreciate him. That's why he won every single swing state. That's why he won the popular vote. Sometimes you got to let the people suffer. Sometimes you got to let people go through things because they won't appreciate you. Trump is saying, well, we would have never had this. I think that it was divine that we did have it.
Any other
When
questions?
you say they made a mistake in the attack, you said they made a you were told they made a mistake.
No way we
Did you
would
think it was
have.
They
unintentional?
made a mistake. I believe it was. Look, you're going to ask them. This is Biden's war. This is not my war. I've been here for a very short period of time. This is a war that was under Biden. He gave him billions and billions of dollars. He should have never allowed, if he had any brain, which he didn't have and doesn't have, and now it's being proven, he wouldn't have allowed that war to start. I would have absolutely not. That war would never have taken place. But remember this is Biden's war. I'm just trying to get it stopped so that we can save a lot of lives. They happen to be Ukrainian and Russian lives. But all I want to do is get it stopped.
Witkoff, sir, did you meet with Mr. Witkoff today?
I did. I met with him, and he had some very good meetings on the Middle East, and he also had good meetings having to do with Russia, Ukraine.
Can you give us an update on Iran?
Well, we're going to be doing it very shortly. Iran also. It was another way. I met with a different group of people in Iran, and we'll be making a decision on Iran very quickly. Yeah, please.
Back on Russia, Ukraine, resolving that war has taken a little longer than you predicted. Can you pinpoint the reasons why?
It's a deeply seated war. And again, it's a war that people didn't expect would start. And in my administration, there was no chance that it would start. And it didn't, by the way. You know.
No. Listen, I am a pretty heavy conservative. One thing that Trump said, I hate to say it, and I'm not sure if he took in all of the factors when he was making his announcement during the campaign trail. One thing that Trump said was he would stop the war. By the time he got into office, he had already been negotiating it, and he would stop it on day one. Now, I'm not saying that it's his fault. I'm not saying that he should be responsible for what happens in a war. Yes, he is correct. Yes, it is Biden's war. Yes, it is Kamala Harris's war. Yes, we have to hold Democrats accountable for new wars during their term. But one thing that Trump did say, he said that he would stop the wars on the first day of him getting inside of office. And so we got to hold him accountable for that. I'm not sure if it's anything that you can hold him accountable for, but that is what he said. He said he would have it done. Now, I think that he was probably a little bit too ambitious. He probably should have said, my goal is to stop Biden's war and to stop it from happening, because it never would have happened if it was under my administration. But I just was looking at over the weekend, bombings both in Russia and Ukraine, and more people dying. And objective, listen, I promised y'all this year, I am going to be objective with my thoughts. I'm not just going to gloss over things that I see and act like it didn't happen or he didn't say it. I largely stand with Trump, and I believe he's doing a phenomenal job in office. But one of the things that he said is that he would end the war and the war will be over on his first day in office. That hasn't happened. I think that he's really working it and trying to be hard up on it, but he just wasn't able to deliver that on the first day in office. Just is what it is.
I went 4 years and it didn't start. People say, oh, well, how do you know? Well, I know because I went 4 years and it didn't start. You would have never had that war. It would have never started. Putin never would have started it. I think, frankly, he had so little respect for Biden that he started it for that reason. And obviously he didn't get along very well with Zelensky or anybody else. And now you have...
Somebody says he's stopping the war. The war won't be stopped until Putin and Zelensky are face to face. Listen, I don't know what the terms is. All I do is I go by what people tell me. And that's what I evaluate things off of. We can deep dive into the nuances of it, but that's what I look at. That's what I go based off of.
Millions of dead people. And those people, every one of them should be alive right now.
Mr. President, are you announced tariffs on things like...
Lisa says, come on, AD. The nut Zelensky is fighting the stop of his money laundering grift. Perhaps. I have been very critical of Zelensky also. Listen. Y'all could say it and switch it up and try to make it to be whatever it is that you want to make it to be. But I'm telling you, objectively speaking, because I have to be an equal accountability smoke giver, that was what was said. and this is what is done. This is the current state of how things are. Okay, do I believe that he's working fervently on stopping the war? 100%. He said that it would be stopped on his first day in office. That is not true. That's all I'm saying. You can add whatever context is. You can say whatever it is that we want to say, but we have to be objective because nobody is above criticism. Nobody is above evaluation. Nobody is above listening to what they say and say, hey, listen, did you say, okay, cool. Well, we got to make adjustments. Okay, well, that means we got to acknowledge that that wasn't true, right? Nobody is above criticism. Nobody.
iPhones, tablets.
Well, that's going to be announced very soon, and we'll be discussing it. But we'll also talk to companies. You know, you have to show a certain flexibility. Nobody should be so rigid. You have to have a certain flexibility. And we're doing really well, and financially our country is going to be stronger than
I agree, Matthew.
So some products there's flexibility for some products?
For some products, yeah, maybe.
Can you say what kinds?
No, I'll be announcing it in the not too distant future, but it's going to be separately announced.
Mr. President, do you have any reaction to...
Very much like if you look, automobiles, again, automobiles, we have a tariff. Nobody's complaining about it. Went through the process, we have the tariff. Steel, aluminum, and some other things. So, and by the way, our country is taking in billions and billions of dollars on those tariffs. Billions of dollars. And maybe almost as importantly, or maybe more importantly, automobile companies, steel companies and factories, and aluminum companies and factories are opening up in our country. But we're taking in billions of dollars on just those three categories.
Speaking of steel, can you talk about your conversations with Nippon Steel and what?
Yeah, we're talking about different things, but I think that the United States Steel, one of the great companies.
Antoine Johnson says, Anton, you actually thought he was going to stop at day one. There's something MSNBC would bring up. I didn't think that he would stop it on day one. I thought that it was an ambitious thing that he would say. I was, my thing was, well, if he was able to get it done on day one, then that was awesome. I'm not an emotional voter. I vote based off of logic. My goal is to stop the wars, to make America great again. And I look at the policies, I look at the executive orders, and then I call a spade a spade. It's not whether or not it's one thing that one politician said. It's the overall premise of how they were going to preside over the United States of America. And because I am an objective person and I am looking to be more objective every single day, I think that he's working very, very hard on stopping a war. I think it's more complicated than he anticipated. Because, again, you can't necessarily control two other countries or two other nations, especially some that refuse to turn off the spigot when it comes to the money that's coming into them. But, again, I just think that you got to be objective and you just got to call it is what it is. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let me read some of these super chats, and then we'll go on from there. Champ Loop Poppy says, Anton, let Nana live. No, she got all that fake stuff in her house. Mr. Joe says, I think a big key to Trump's great health is that he has a lot of purpose. Yeah. That's why you got to stay active. That's why you got to stay busy. Moses King says, morning AD, Trump is live right now with the president of El Salvador, and he just asked if they'll allow men and women's sports. I can't make this. No, we're going to review that tomorrow. That's tomorrow's show. I knew that the president of El Salvador had traveled to the United States of America, and so that's tomorrow. But happy belated birthday, Anton. Today is my B-Day, big dog. Happy birthday, Rob. And all of my people that got birthdays in April, happy birthday to all of y'all. Lady Chan says, Russia declared war in Ukraine March 2014 under Obama and continued in his first term, so that's cap. All three of those presidents did that. Nada. Shout out to you, Lady Chan. I appreciate you for rocking out with me. Lady Chan is dope. Lady Chan is absolutely awesome. Sometimes we got to get her off of some of these other platforms. She's cool on Fatty's platform because Fatty is cool. But got to keep her off of some of these other platforms. But I like Lady Chan. Lady Chan is cool. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's pivot for a minute and let's look at it from, well, I don't want to talk about that one yet. Wait a minute. That can't be right. China doubling down on the tariffs was the next one. I don't want to talk about Ray Dalio yet. Let's talk about China doubling down on tariffs. All right, here we go. China is doubling down on tariffs and their stance, considering that Trump is not budging. They're not moving, not even a little bit. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's dig into it, y'all.
For a closer look at China when it comes to tariffs, let's get to Eunice Yoon in Beijing. A lot going on, Eunice, regarding rare earths, visit to Vietnam, and more. Good morning.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. You guys were talking about those tariff exemptions. The Chinese government, on the whole, over the weekend, had acknowledged that the tariff exemptions were what they described as a small step, and even said that China was evaluating the impact. The state media, though, had said that this was a U.S. retreat, and also more evidence that the Chinese supply chain is really, really important for.
Why are our newspapers do that also? Not even our newspapers, our media. You would think that they actually were ran by other countries. Like, you would think that MSNBC, ABC, and CNN at the least were ran by other countries, because I can understand them being critical of whatever they, are against when it comes to things that is happening within America, right? So let's just say, for example, you on one side of the fence when it comes to police brutality. I'm on the other side of the fence when it comes to police brutality, or some local issue, or drilling inside of America, or more jobs, or bureaucratic nonsense, or cutting the red tape, or fraud, waste, and abuse, and stuff like that, right? Let's say that we have some internal issues that we just fundamentally disagree with. We are supposed to disagree with those things, and that's why we debate. But then when you start to get into international conflicts and wars and focusing on that, you would almost think that these places are ran by outside resources that are continuing to fund them or keeping their coffers fine, because it's like, why would you be against America when it comes to making sure that we go back and forth with other countries? They want us to fail so bad. And it's not, see, listen, if Trump doesn't get the things done that politicians should have got done a long time ago, do you know what happens? We all suffer. Remember when y'all was suffering under the Biden administration and y'all was complaining about, oh my God, is the cost of housing, products, going back and forth, traveling, gas prices, and all of that type of stuff. Remember when y'all was complaining about the cost of living and inflation at an all-time high, and y'all was broke even when you was working 72 hours a week? Because I know your memory is short. Remember that? He's trying to fix all of the things that the politicians that came before him. And it also involves us getting involved with making sure that we get our slice of the pie internationally. How can you be against that? Y'all want China to flood the United States of America with trash products? Y'all want that?
The world. Today, though, probably because of a lot of the confusion out of the messaging from the White House, the Chinese government doubled down on their overall stance. That is, that the U.S. government should abolish the tariffs and the what they describe as wrongful actions around those tariffs. What was also interesting is that a state TV-linked social media account, which is now closely watched.
Ian says, you don't like women. Stop faking. Faking what? No, I don't like your mother. Too much spit, bro. Too much spit. I don't like your mother. Too much spit, man. Wasn't a great experience. And so, it was what it was. You better leave me alone. I'm in the mood this week. To go all the way. I'm willing to go all the way left. I'm willing to take it as far as you want to go. As far as you want to go is where I want to take it. That's what happens when you say things that's not even relevant to anything that we're talking about on the platform. Now, if you want to have this conversation on After Hours, or you want to have this conversation on the Anton Daniels channel, then that's one thing. But If you want to talk politics, policy, you want to talk international trade relations, tariffs, you got a difference of opinion on Democrat versus, cool. Business, awesome. But you just randomly saying something like that, and I'm just going to randomly say things that first thing to come to my mind. She spit too much.
Watched for messaging on U.S.-China trade just several hours ago, elaborated a little bit further, saying that to the Trump team, their what they call delusion is China will compromise under high tariffs. The account goes on saying if the U.S. really wants to talk, China needs to see real action. What was also interesting is that the same blogger account was hinting at who would be taken, what kind of step would be taken next. And the target, they said, was American IP and American brands. And then this blogger went on to suggest that Chinese people could reject them. And they said that they noted that Walt Disney and Comcast, which owns CNBC, have development and production businesses, theme parks, and consumer goods in China. They also mentioned Sony, Paramount Global, as well as Netflix. The messaging, though, overall, outside of that, the potential for countermeasures, is that there needs to be a lot of support for Chinese exporters, and that this is paramount. Carl, you mentioned President Xi's visit to Vietnam. He is there in Southeast Asia on a 3-nation tour.
Somebody said, Deacon Demand says no such thing until you got to sleep in a wet spot. Till you got to sleep in a wet spot. Don't tell me it ain't no such thing. Yes, it is.
Ostensibly to try to build up those trade ties. Today he announced, or China
more to come
Vietnam
on after hours.
that they had signed
focused,
several trade negotiation deals. And then, of course, there is the private sector that is also getting involved to try to help redirect some of the goods that the exporters used to sell, and I guess so still do sell to the United States as well as elsewhere, but also to sell them here in China.
Well, I've got to tell you, Eunice, I listened to you all morning, and you've been incredibly spot on all these things. But when I listen to the rhetoric from China, this is 1968, 72 rhetoric. This is the kind of rhetoric that just says there's never going to be a meeting. Is there a way to have a Nixon to China moment? Because as far as I'm concerned, this is just right now. You're on the verge of when I was a little boy. We kept thinking, when are they going to bomb us? I mean, that was the same rhetoric. Well, when are they going to launch their nuclear weapons? I mean, that's why we used to live in fear. That's why we had cubby holes. That's why we used to put our heads in a cubby hole, because the Chinese were going to bomb us if the Russians didn't bomb us. This is the same sound.
Y'all contacting HR?
Well, I mean, I think that the Chinese have shown that they are willing to negotiate, that they do eventually want to have some sort of meeting. But it's just that the rhetoric, I mean, you mentioned rhetoric coming out of China. The rhetoric from the Chinese perspective of the White House is not actually that helpful, because the way things are being set up is that President Trump is the kingmaker, and that all these countries around the world are going over there and groveling and asking for deals. From the Chinese perspective, this cannot happen.
So this is the problem. I'm gonna explain it to y'all from a C student's perspective. All right, y'all ready to understand what the problem is? You want to know? You want to know? You want to know what the new strategy is? Because this is not just a tariff against China versus America. China doesn't really have anything to hold over our heads at all. When these Chinese people jumped on TikTok, came straight from Red Note, and they said, hey, because we don't use any American products. They didn't know that they was actually saying exactly what we thought they were saying. That was the problem, is that you don't buy from us, which we want your money. However, the problem is that you gave us all of the leverage, because since we buy all, ta-da! And so the tariff war has evolved. It's not just a tariff war on goods. It's also forcing other countries. Because see, listen, when you're the number one and the number two superpower in the world, what happens is you force people to pick sides. When Trump said, listen, we are going to reduce tariffs on the rest of the world, Trump didn't blink. He didn't blink. He played chess, not checkers. So what he basically did was he allowed for other countries to get a reprieve and to be blessed so that they can continue to align with America instead of the Chinese. So he anticipated Xi Jinping reaching out to other countries because they are the ones that are basically the only ones that's suffering and doing the world the most harm. What America has done is a blessing and a curse at the same time. We cause ourselves a bunch of debt, but at the same time, we made everybody start hating China because China was also ruining and doing the same thing to other countries as they did to the United States of America. It's just that we had the capital, the resources, the funding, and extensive buying power to endure through it. So even though our Democrats and our Republicans of past sold us out, what they did was they made the rest of the world hate China also, because China also did the same thing. They just did it to much smaller countries. They destroyed economies. They destroyed neighborhoods. They destroyed factories. They destroyed jobs. And then they said, hey, we'll give you high-speed rail if you let us continue to export all of our products over to y'all countries. What it also did was it created a disdain for China from other countries. So then when Trump said, okay, listen, initially we're going to tariff all of the world, and then they waited for China to jump, and China said, all right, listen, we big dog too. I'm Luigi. Just because it's named Super Mario Brothers, just because it's Mario Kart, just because it's Mario World, don't think that I don't got no sway in this. I'm good on Smash Bros too. I'm good on Smash Bros too. Right? So now what America did was they allowed for China to jump out the window with no parachute. And now China is falling and they're in a crisis. Their real estate was already in the bubble. Their manufacturing capacity was the only thing that was saving them. And now, over a period of time, you're going to start seeing them collapse unless they come to the table with a deal. And so Trump allowed them to jump out the window. They was the first one to say, well, no, we're going to throw reciprocal tariffs because we tough and we can survive this. And then Trump said, all right, cool. Everybody else, we're going to go back to the reduced 10% tariff except on certain products. Aluminum, steel, whatever. We got to protect our industries. But everybody else, just come on and come over. 70 plus countries called. They on their way over. They flew over. They said, all right, so what can we do? And what Trump is basically doing is he's pushing other countries to not do business with China in order to continue to export products to the United States of America at a reduced cost. The reason why China is having so much difficulty with getting everybody else in a corner is because they need the United States of America, and China is just exporting products to their country. They're not actually doing nothing for them that's going to benefit them. So if you want to save your country, he's forcing every other country to pick sides. If y'all having problems with the audio, you might want to leave and come back. It's not on my side, it's YouTube's side. My side is actually working great. Just refresh the stream. He's forcing other countries to pick sides. You type this in the chat. The tariff war now has transitioned into allies versus enemies. Who wants to be on the losing side? Y'all can go and rock out with China. Or who wants to be on the winning side and you can come and rock out with the United States of America. That's what Trump is doing. And China is now saying that, hey, listen, we actually want you guys to be careful and make sure that you actually listen. Anybody, please, United States of America, come back to the front of the table. Come to the table with a deal. We actually want to rock out with you. And we saying, nah, we got all of these other girls. Why do I need you?
China's leadership is reacting to the Trump administration's latest tariff moves on technology. Let's bring in Eunice Yoon from Beijing. Eunice, good afternoon.
Thanks, Kelly. Well, you know, China messages indirectly as well. And just in the past hour, a social media account that is linked to Chinese state TV and is often followed here for its messaging on U.S.-China trade issues just posted. And it said that China, quote, have development and production businesses, theme parks, and consumer goods.
They so desperate that now they saying, listen, we can block y'all streaming services from inside of our country if you guys don't remove the tariffs. we targeting real products and real things that's coming inside of the country. China is saying, well, this is propaganda from a state TV blogger. It's saying that the next target is going to be Disney, Comcast, Paramount, Netflix, and Sony. Now, if you guys are a part of Block Club or Stock Club, then you know that I spoke about this situation, including Netflix, over the past few days ago. All right, so make sure y'all go back and look at that.
Here. It also mentioned Sony, Paramount Global, as well as Netflix. Now, officially, the Chinese government over the weekend had also acknowledged the tariff exemptions by the Trump administration, calling them a small step and saying that China is, quote, evaluating the impact.
Am I having some audio issues that I'm not aware of? What's going on? Y'all good?
State media had described the exemptions as a U.S. retreat. But today, the Chinese government doubled down, saying that the U.S. needed to change its ways and abolish what it described as wrongful actions about the tariffs. So the messaging otherwise, guys, has been that China really needs to support its exporters and that is paramount. And we see President Xi Jinping currently in Southeast Asia on a tour there. He's in Vietnam. The expectation is that he's going to try to expand those markets for Chinese exporters. Also, a lot of the private sector, some of the big check names, such as PDD. So that's, of course, the owner of Temu, and then TikTok owners ByteDance. Baidu, all of them joined Alibaba and JD to try to find ways to help Chinese exporters redirect their products into the Chinese market. Guys?
So now they're trying to leverage these companies that do business with China or do business in China, these Chinese companies, and they're trying to redirect their products. You know what people are doing? You know what a lot of these companies are doing? Trying to bolster relationships with companies or with nations outside of the United States of America, countries outside of the United States of America, and they're trying to ship their products through them to us. And this is why Trump is now looking at them and saying, listen, you want to do business with them? I could tariff y'all too at the same rate that I'm tariffing China. If you want to not be caught up in this firestorm and you think that they going to be able to ship their products into your country and then get them over here to the United States of America, you got another thing coming, big dog. You got another thing coming. Anyways, make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. I want to get into Ray Dalio shortly, but before we get into Ray Dalio, let me read some of these super chats, and then we're going to continue on with the show. Shout out to Mr. B, says news now. Shout out to Hayes. I appreciate you. Faith M says happy birthday to the hardest working man on YouTube. Shout out to all of my April babies. I appreciate y'all. Armand says happy belated birthday, AD. May you have many more and God bless. Thank you, Armand. AR Smitty says audio time dog. Everybody's saying it's not me. They're saying if you got to go out and refresh and you'll be all right. Faces says my wife and I have 3 duplexes in a house. 3 duplexes in a house. Okay. No lie. When you bought the Tesla stock live, I had 4K to follow you. But as you said, there's no point in investing. If you're not debt free, thank you for your knowledge. Shout out to y'all. Run it up. And my dog, Slimmy, in the building. Slimmy says, happy belated birthday to my dog, one of the hardest working men I know. Continue to be great husband, great father, great inspiration to all those around you. And shout out to the bag chasers. Anton Daniels, better thank a union member. Love you, bro. Shout out to my bro Slimmy. He also had a birthday the other day. My dog Slimmy holding it down. Shout out to Slimmy. Thank you, big dog. We got the Q show tonight, don't we? Q show tonight? It's good now, DZ. Audio is good. Y'all had to refresh. All right, go ahead. All right, so we rocking. All right, y'all, let's get into Ray Dalio. I want to talk about Ray Dalio. He had some things to say about something that could be worse than a recession. I haven't seen this yet, but I definitely want to have a conversation because it's on one of the opposing networks. Here's Ray Dalio, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get it popping.
Welcome back. And joining me now is Ray Dalio, the founder of the world's largest hedge fund, Bridgewater Associates. He is also the author of the new book, How Countries Go Broke. It's out in June. Mr. Dalio, welcome to Meet the Press.
Y'all don't know who Ray Dalio is? Ray Dalio is a beast. When Ray Dalio speaks, we want to listen. Dude made a lot of money. One of the smartest men and some of the best books that I've ever read.
Thank you. Good to be here. Just call me Ray.
Okay. Well, Ray, I'll take you up on that. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your perspective. As I just said, you did found the world's largest hedge fund. You have been in this field for more than 50 years. It's worth pointing out to our viewers, I think it's important to note you consider yourself to be apolitical. And you say that...
Have y'all noticed, and I'm going to just say this before we get into what he's about to say, that I don't want anybody to ever criticize me or anybody else that's hustling, getting multiple jobs, having multiple streams of income, and working until our 90s. I don't want nobody else to say nothing. These guys be putting out books. They be working. They be the CEOs of their company. They never stop. And these guys be multi-billionaires and they never stop. Nobody, listen, to work is just to be a man. To be productive is to be a man. I don't want nobody sitting here criticizing anybody that's getting to the bag and grinding and hustling. If Ray Dalio can do it, if Warren Buffett can do it, if Tim Cook can do it, if all of these people can do it and they decide, listen, I'm not ready to retire, I'm just going to work until I croak, don't nobody say nothing to me. Keep your little short dreams to yourself. We got bigger things that we want to accomplish. Let's get into what he has to say.
That the tariff problem is a symptom of a much greater problem. What do you mean by that?
There's a financial problem. There's an imbalance problem. There are basically 5 big forces through history that drive everything. First, there's the money, credit, debt, economic cycle, in which there's a building up of debt in a cyclical way that becomes too large, and we're going to have problems. We're going to have a government debt problem. Maybe we can get into this. The second big force through
he just said it. Hold
is
on.
the internal conflict force. The left and the right, differences in wealth and values causing a conflict.
The biggest problems, first problem he said is that we got a debt problem in the United States of America. This is the thing that Elon Musk is trying to solve for while you got all of these crazy people protesting on the streets every day, funded by George Soros, allegedly. The first thing he said is we got a debt problem in the United States of America that we need to solve for. The second thing he says is we have a cultural problem where we continue to clash, and I'm sure he's going to add the context.
That we're seeing it changing our political order. So the first is changing our monetary order. The second is changing our political order internally. And then the third is the great world order, how countries deal with each other. When there's a rising power, challenging the existing power. And now we are going from multilateralism, which is largely an American world order type of thing, to a unilateral world order in which there's great conflict. And the other 2 factors all through history have been acts of nature, droughts, floods, and pandemics. And number 4 is technology changing. And how they are coming together are the main forces behind this. For example, there can't be imbalances anymore in that environment.
Do you think that President Trump's tariffs are exacerbating what you are describing, this complicated mix of challenges that the world is facing?
I think it's just a function of how well they're handled. You know,
when the difficulty of getting with these biased reporters is that it makes it hard for them to actually ask good questions. Because A, I'm not sure if they really even understand what Ray Dalio was saying. But B, because they are so biased, they're asking a question slanted, trying to bait him or goat him into answering it from one lens instead of just trying to understand exactly what the problem is. She's trying to get him to say, hey, no, Trump's tariffs are exacerbating the problem. He's saying, listen, it's not the tariffs that is the problem. It is, we have to just pay attention to how things are being handled and then we react accordingly. But when you have a biased reporter that asks questions slanted, but not objectively, it makes it much more difficult as an interviewer, or it makes the interview more difficult to consume.
It's a reality that it's a desire to bring in tax revenue from that. It's a reality that we would like to build manufacturing and jobs here. This is a reality. That's how that's done, whether that's done in a practical way, whether that's done in a stable way, whether that's done with quality negotiations in which that's a mutual problem, or whether that's done in a chaotic and disruptive way that produces great conflict, makes all the difference in the world.
Based on what you're seeing right now, do you think that these tariffs are being carried out in a practical way or a chaotic way?
I think we'll see. So far, very disruptive. So far, very disruptive, right? And so we don't know what the numbers are. But that could be part of a process, right? It depends where we are at the end of the 90 days. Because what was put there is like throwing rocks into the production system. And those impacts would be enormous in terms of the efficiency of the whole world. Great cost.
I want to ask you about something that's on a lot of people's minds, your predictions for the future. And I want to start with the R word. I know you think this is just a piece of it. Of course, I'm talking about a recession. Do you think it is likely that the United States will dip into a recession because of President Trump's tariffs?
You see how she added that last part on there? Instead of saying, hey, do you think that it's a possibility that we can ever dip into a recession? And then right at the end, right when he was about to answer, because of President Trump's tariffs. Listen how she played it.
I think this is just a piece of it. Of course, I'm talking about a recession. Do you think it is likely that the United States will dip into a recession because of President Trump's tariffs?
I think that right now, we are at a decision-making point and very close to a recession. And I'm worried about
y'all got an earthquake over there on the West Coast? It's an earthquake happening over there on the West Coast. Keep me up to date. Keep me informed.
In a recession, if this isn't handled well. A recession is 2 negative quarters of GDP, and whether it goes slightly there, we always have those things. We have something that's much more profound. We have a breaking down of the monetary order. We are going to change the monetary order because we cannot spend the amounts of money, so we have that problem. And when we talk about the dollar and we talk about tariffs, we have that. We are having profound changes in our domestic order, how ruling is existing, and we're having profound changes in the world order. Such times are very much like the 1930s. I've studied history, and this repeats over and over again. So if you take tariffs, if you take debt, if you take the rising power challenging the existing power, if you take those factors and look at the factors, those changes in the orders, the systems, are very, very disruptive. How that's handled could produce something that is much worse than a recession, or it could be handled well. Let's take the debt situation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, very quickly, because I want to be very specific about what you mean. You're saying worse than recession. You're saying
why is she interrupting him? Why don't she let him finish his thought? Like, you don't want to interrupt Ray Dalio. You want to let him talk and you want to let him explain himself. And this is why I think that everything is an agenda. You know what I'm saying? Like, let him cook. Let him go into it.
It's reminiscent of the 1930s. We should tell our viewers you correctly predicted the 2008 financial crisis. What is your prediction for where the country is headed right now?
Right now, we're at a juncture. Let's take the budget. if the budget deficit can be reduced to 3% of GDP, it will be about 7% if things are not changed. If it could be reduced to about 3% of GDP, and these trade deficits and so on are managed in the right way, this could all be managed very well. I believe that members of Congress should take the pledge, what I call the 3% pledge, that in one way or another,
they're not going to do it.
Get that budget deficit down to that number. If they don't, we're going to have a supply-demand problem for debt at the same time as we have these other problems. And the results of that will be worse than a normal recession.
Did you just hear what he said? She tried to throw Trump under the bus, and he redirected the question, and then he also answered it differently. He said, listen, we need to get Congress to take a pledge because Congress is the ones that control the purse strings inside of the United States of America. Thank God now we have a Republican-led Congress. He said we need Congress to take the pledge to reduce our spending as a country. We have to reduce our spending. I don't know if people understand how important this is. All right. I like to break it down from a C student's perspective, so let's do it like this. You realize that y'all have upcoming things inside of your household, right? The kids are going to be going to college. You trying to pay off the student loans of everybody, right? It's you got to get the roof done. The windows going to have to be done. You're going to have to make some costly repairs to your home in order to ensure that everything is good, right? But because you gave your girl a credit card and you share finances with her and stuff like that, and she just keep hiding purchases, but she keeps spending it. She nickel and diming you to death, right? Because she's a part of Congress. She's Congress. Her and the kids is Congress. The kids got a card. You got a card. You oversee the household, so you're the president. And you got to sign in the legislation, whatever. But the Congress keep on spending money, and they just spending it. And next thing you know, you got debt up to eyeballs. You got $100,000 in debt, and you don't have no ability to pay it off the instance in that month. So now you got to start paying interest on that debt. Now you're paying $2,000 a month in interest alone. You're paying $2,000 in interest alone because now you don't feel like you can get ahead. Because every little dime that you do, everything that you do, and here's the worst part about it. You told her that we got a problem. Hey, listen, we need to cut our spending. We need to start knocking down this debt so that I ain't getting charged all of this interest. And if we don't knock it down, and the kids going to have to take out student loans, we're going to take out more debt. Everything's going to collapse. I'm not going to be able to get the roof done, the house, and all of this stuff. And my credit is going down because my credit utilization rate is up so high. And she said, okay. We're going to go ahead and do it. We're going to go ahead and take care of business. And then she keep on spending. And then you go to her and you say, hey, listen, I asked you not to spend no money. What is going on? Well, the kids needed new shoes. That's USA ID. And Sarah, she wanted to go on a trip. Social Security fraud. She's telling you how we can't survive or we have to keep on doing things that we're not supposed to do. And you, as the president of your household, is saying, listen, we are going to be homeless. Property taxes is coming up. We about to have leaks in the roof. We got to stop spending. We got to stop doing what we going. Well, but I already promised my girlfriend that I was going to go on a trip. So what you saying? We can't go on this trip no more? And now you stuck between a rock and a hard place. Is that a better explanation for you guys, except it's on a national level and we are facing a existential crisis because we're paying 1 to 2. See, y'all don't really, because these numbers are so big, it's almost like it don't relate to you. Y'all are paying, we're paying $1 to $2 trillion in interest alone interest alone. So you trying to convince her, and listen, I'm working with Anton Daniels. He doing this pro bono, and he telling me I need to pay off the debt. He went through my finances. That's Doge. I'm Doge, fraud, waste, and abuse. So I got to figure out where all of the holes are. And he went through and he realized that you just keep on buying purses. And honey, what is all of this Klarna and Afterpay and all of this stuff that's on my account? Because I can't get ahead if you keep on spending. What is this, honey? Anton went through our finances with a fine-tooth comb and he found that you're spending an extra this amount every single month. What is going on? That's what we're facing inside the United States of America. And next thing you know, she gonna go on TikTok and say, yeah, I had to break up my household because, he wasn't generous. Where's all of the good men at? Where's the men that love to, spoil their girls and take care of business and do this and do that? Where's all of the good men at? Where my ballers at? These men are stingy out here. I'm telling you the cycle. Where's the good men?
And just to follow up on that point, worse than a recession, you're talking about the 1930s. What specifically are you warning of? Are you saying that it could be as bad as a depression? What's your biggest fear?
The value of money. What is a storehold of wealth? That is a bond. In other words, one man's debt is another man's assets, bondholders. And so we're going to be in a situation where if that storehold of wealth is in jeopardy because there's too much supply and demand and so on, and we have a monetary inflation, we will have great disruptions. And that could be like the breakdown of the monetary system in 71.
And I'm about to go and talk to, you know what? I'm about to go and divest. Because, these black guys, they keep on talking about their budget. White man is generous. White man is super generous. Because they spending. And then you're going to see women in the comments, where you meet them at? Where they at? Girl, you got to go to the Four Seasons Hotel. Go sit at the bar. I reviewed a video yesterday where a woman said, if a man is not generous, if a man is broke, he hates you. Well, what if you're the reason that he broke? Does that count too? Don't worry about it. Shout out to Ray Dalio. Make sure you I'm going to clip that one up for y'all because, again, I like to break it down from a C student's perspective. I want y'all to understand what y'all getting yourself into. And I need you to understand why it's important for you to stick to a budget because he got plans for you. He want to actually allow for y'all to grow and blow up, but you keep on buying all of these cheap products from Temu and Fashion Nova because Cardi B told you to do it. Girl, go sit at the bar and act like you drinking vodka, but it's really water. Girl, go sit at the bar and, get the glass, not the water glass, but get water in it. Lady Shan says, happy belated birthday time. Lots of love and many more. Shout out to my girl, Lady Shan. I love her. We love Lady Shan. Courtney Egger show says, shout out to you, big dog. Big inspiration. You help me look at things from a different perspective. I'm working. Beto Royale says, blessings, AD. Can I get a few financial book recommendations? Just finished paying off $30,000 in debt and started a business, and I'm on my 9 to 5. Still on my 9 to 5. Financial book recommendations. Now, it all depends on where you at, okay? So you can go with, I'm looking at my books right there. You can go with, well, I always like to start people off with Richest Man in Babylon. That's first. And then I go with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Bam. Next thing you know, I want to start getting into How to Win Friends and Influence People. Bam. Then we going to go with A Random Walk Down Wall Street. Bam. Throw in a little bit of The Big Short. Bam. And then we're going to go with The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Bam. And let me look at something else up there. Let me see. Got the light shining in my face. And because I feel like I'm gonna be going backwards if I tell you any of those other ones. Freakonomics. All right, go with Freakonomics. I like that. Shout out to you, Vito Royale. I like that, big dog. Keep on running it up. AR Smitty says Kristen should have lost whatever credibility she had after the debate. Nah, they're going to keep her on. Payne says my credit dropped 100 points, missed my payments on student loans. Don't have anybody to blame but me, but it's crunch time and time to not spend on anything unnecessary. Car paid off and I rent. Help. Got to pay off them student loans. I was telling people that they needed to continue to make the payment on the student loans when a moratorium kicked in because they wasn't charging y'all no interest. So anything that you was paying was going straight to the principal. Gotta pay them off. Gotta rice and beans. Night J says, my hub said, if you leave me, I'd be rich. That's what a lot of guys say. All right, y'all. Listen, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. We kicked it today. I always do overtime. Do you know that this show is only supposed to be 2 hours? This show is only supposed to be 2 hours. Every day, I go 2.5 to 3 hours for y'all, and I give y'all all of the information. I want to give a shout out to Sholdon Daniels for coming on the show. Thank you, my friend. Absolutely great having you on. I want to thank everybody that's inside of the chat. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Tiege Hanley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off for life. I love you. I appreciate y'all. Tune into the Q show tonight. It's going to be fun. Chase Barnes says Sock Club and Block Club by AD. Bam! Tap into the Patreon. We getting it. But you know what? You know what the problem is by being on the live stream and giving y'all overtime every day? Now you expect it. If I was to do a regular 2-hour show, you would feel like somebody stole your puppy. If I do a regular 2-hour show, you're going to be like, hey, what's going on? Because now I've normalized it. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. See y'all tonight. Peace.